Hello, everybody, and welcome to SideQuests, a gaming podcast about entertainment, enrichment, and unique perspectives. I'm Bobby, and I'm joined by my fellow questers, Sky.
Hi, everyone.
And Cody.
Hello.
Hello. How is everyone doing? Are we doing well?
I'm pretty good.
Can't complain, honestly. I was more concerned about you last week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a moment. why we delayed our second ever episode in an entire week. We got great responses to last week, though. I want to thank everybody for reaching out, leaving comments on YouTube, reaching out on Twitter and in the Discord. We got a bunch of people join the Discord this week as well, which was just amazing. If you're enjoying the show, please review and rate us on Apple Podcasts. Even if you don't use Apple Podcasts as your primary podcasting platform, it is the primary podcasting platform, and reviews and ratings on there do a ton to get us exposure. So that's the place. If you're going to leave a rating and a review, leave it there. You can check us out on Spotify or any place, any podcast platform of choice, of course, as well. If you're watching us on YouTube at a later time on the archive, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps get the show out to more people. So yeah. Last week, I had COVID. I got the Rona last week. I made it over 3 years without getting it. And then last week, that streak came to an end. Spartan Wolf, thank you so much. I am feeling better today. It's about a week after I really started showing symptoms. It was actually last Sunday evening. I started to have like post-nasal drippy feeling in the back of my throat and stuff like that. And then it just went downhill from there. But it, it was mild. It was a mild case. I had a fever for about 2 days, a low-grade fever for about 2 days, some congestion, a cough, a persistent but light cough. And then I just felt exhausted and had crazy brain fog for most of those days, which was really sort of the worst part of it. I didn't have a terrible cough, but I just had a cough that would not stop. So it just ended up being a thing where, I ended up the third day having my chest felt like it was going to it wanted to leave my body because it was so sore from just constantly coughing over and over and over again. But it's as far as how these things can go, it was not that bad. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I had it at the worst, but it was not great. But anyway, I was relatively lucky because like I said, the symptoms weren't that bad, and I was talking to Sky before we started tonight, and I was like, I cannot even imagine what it's like to have even a moderate case of it, which, as Sky said, you end up on a ventilator. So even
Basically.
if it's a moderate, so it's just, I count myself very lucky. Nobody in my family no one else in my family got sick. So we think they gave it to me in some ways, but that means they also had very mild versions, which is nice. And, I was with my parents that Sunday, the day before I really started showing symptoms. So I was worried that, I might have passed it on to them, but they seem good. Luckily, it's been 7 days of no symptoms there. So I think we're good.
I'm so happy because I mentioned earlier to you what my experience with that was I didn't have COVID, or as far as I'm aware, I didn't. It was maybe asymptomatic, who knows. Mm-hmm. But my dad got really, really sick, and he was off work for 3 months with brain inflammation as a result of COVID. Light sensitivity, migraines, dizziness, vertigo, and it was pretty bad. And every CT scan he had, every kind of doctor's appointment was just you gotta let it wait. You gotta let it go down. We don't know when it's gonna happen. We don't have enough research. Mm-hmm. 3 months later, the swelling subsided enough for him to go back to work, and now he's right as rain as far as we're aware. So, it's scary stuff.
Yeah, it's extremely scary. I know, Cody, you had it a few months ago, right?
Yeah, I got it in January. We had a bad breakout at work, and it was literally one girl got it, I got it, and then 2 more people got it, and it was all because we worked in the same vicinity of each other. And I didn't have anything. I had a very bad headache, and I felt really worn down for that whole week. But that I was very lucky. I mean, I had people in my life who they still can't smell properly, and it's been almost a year and like that's insane to me.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm glad you're okay, Bobby. Funnily
too.
enough, the day after I got a stomach bug, and I was like, oh no, I have COVID again.
Is the podcast cursed?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm glad we decided not to record this week because like
Yeah.
I felt terrible. So, but yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, in our group chat, Cody was like, geez, if you didn't want to pick your favorite characters of the year, you could have just said so.
You have a better excuse, Bobby.
Yeah. And at that time when we were joking about that, I was like, I don't have COVID. Like I just have some, but I just want to test just to make sure. And then I took one of those, at home tests, and that line turned red immediately. It was just like, you don't have to wait 15 minutes, my friend. You are sick. Like it was just that's what it was immediately. So yeah. So, but I'm feeling a lot better now. Like the biggest thing is today I have all of the energy back,
That's important.
Yesterday I was feeling much more normal, but I still Saturday I was feeling, I was feeling okay. Like I was definitely like, if I just had a cold, I would have gone out and I could have done stuff, or whatever, but that's how I felt. But then there was a couple things like on our patio that needed to get brought to the garbage area. And so I was like, okay, I'll just do that today. Like I need to get outside the house. Like I can't be sitting and literally I moved 3 things that weren't even that big, like not even heavy things at all. And it took me maybe 20 minutes. And then I'm not joking with you guys. I could have slept for the entire rest of the day. Like all my energy was gone. Like my energy was just
winded.
gone. Yeah. It wasn't even winded. I just sat down and all of a sudden I was like, I need to go to close my eyes. Like just completely taxed. Like not even, like I had been working in the mines all day, like that's how, that's how it felt.
Oh, Bobby, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm glad, like Cody said, that you're feeling better. So
yes, I'm feeling much better. And excited to get back to recording this wonderful podcast with you wonderful folks. We're going to move on to our topic. Every week on SideQuests, we pick a topic that we think deserves more delving into. This week's topic, Sky, you came up with it. Do you want to say what it was?
Sure. So I think this is a great idea to kind of showcase what makes a video game important to us and what more important in a video game than the characters. So I figured let's talk about 3 of our favorite characters and we can talk about what makes a good character. We can, answer the question as to, why these characters left a lasting impression on us. I figured it'd be a fun topic and it would be able to kind of show where we sit on that line, which I think is really important in terms of knowing your podcaster. What do they like?
Yes.
What makes them tick? So
Yes.
it's a nice little introductory thing. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. And we got a lot of listener entries into this one on our Discord, and actually we got some ones from our Mount Rushmore topic last week. We got a couple of more listener write-ins for that as well. So we got a lot of stuff that to get to. But before we get to that, Sky, I would love to hear before we dive into what your favorite characters are, what you think makes a great character.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought about this really long and hard. So the reason I based pretty much every character I picked based off of these 3 criteria, because I figured it would make a consistent way to kind of explain why I enjoy this character. So first, I think the character needs to have an ordeal. So for example, Spider-Man loses Uncle Ben. Joel's daughter passes. Oh, maybe we should talk about spoilers. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I think I mean, what you're talking about right now is our very early
early
formative
spoilers,
things.
Yeah.
Which I think we're going to freely and openly talk about. I think as we get into each of these characters, just beware on a character by character basis. If it's a game you haven't played or a series you haven't checked out or whatever, just know that we're probably going to talk about, in order to talk about the character, we're going to need to talk about things that would be considered spoilers if you haven't experienced the story. We will try, even though we're going to say spoilers at the top, I think we should always try to say hey, spoilers, I'm going to talk about something that's going to happen here. But I can't guarantee that's always going to happen because everyone also has a different gauge about what a spoiler is, for
Totally.
what themselves are. So there are times where we say something that we don't think is a spoiler that you're like, guys, whatever. So just know if you hear us bring up a character and you don't want to know anything about that character or the story of the previous game that they were a part of or any of the games that they were a part of. Just so you probably want to maybe skip ahead. If you look in the, if you're watching on YouTube, I did it last week and I've been trying to try it this week where I'll sort of mark where we're talking about each thing so you can easily skip ahead. And those time codes will correspond pretty closely to the podcast version. It's hard to do like chapters and podcasts. Not every service supports it, so I can't really do it. But just so everyone knows, like it's a good point, Sky. We will talk about spoilers for these people. We will try to say like, hey, we're going to talk about a spoiler right now. But just if you want to be totally safe, whenever we bring up a character, just know you might hear everything about that character. All right.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, just wanted to bring that up. Now you can't get mad at me. That's the most important thing. I want to be the most lovable person on this podcast. Okay, I don't want to be the reason y'all are like.
All right.
Anyways, back to the ordeal. So Joel loses his daughter at the beginning of The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. So the ordeal, it gives the character a clear-cut motive or a behavior to kind of start their journey on, and most of which results in a flaw, which humanizes a character. So it could humanize a villain, or it could humanize the main character, a side character. The flaw makes it relatable to the audience. So I think that's a really important part of a character in that type of media, a video game, or even just a movie, or anything you can experience visually, I think needs a flaw. So the second thing I went with was the character's existence has to be justified within the context of the story. So could the story progress without this character? If it can, they're probably not that important to the narrative. And for that reason, they're probably not a very well-written or deep character. Of course, that has, it's different. There are exceptions to that rule, but I think that's a good starting point. And the third thing I kind of based my picks around was consistency of their behavior throughout the narrative. So a character can grow and change, but they can't become unrecognizable. If they become unrecognizable, they're not that character anymore. So I tried to pick my 3 characters based off of these, 3 criteria. So that's what I went with. Did anyone else have a criteria when they were deciding?
Yeah, I don't have a criteria. The funny thing is, like, for me, so a little background, get to know your podcaster. I went to school. I went to undergrad. I have a degree in writing, creative writing, and I went to film school. So a lot of like my ideas about character and stuff like that come from like those worlds or whatever. Very different. A lot of times it's a very different way of developing characters than it is in video games, right? Because there's the interactive element to games makes it different, right? You sometimes imbue character. A lot of times, how good a character is in a video game sometimes can just go to how good of a cipher are they, or a reflector are they for the way you're feeling about the story and stuff like that. And that doesn't disqualify the character at all. But so I have sort of like multiple criteria, I guess, and I tried to pick one from like each one of these in some ways, which is like there's like the traditional, like what I'm talking about, like dramatically satisfying character who has like an arc from beginning to end, who has a journey that's not just plot based, but is like thematically based, because like that's a big part of character journeys in movies and books and television and stuff like that, and stories. That there's a theme that kind of like progresses their story across like this journey, right? Where there's the text and there's subtext going on at the same time. Then there is sort of like who I think, then there's like there's a purely almost, I mean, it exists in movies and other media to some extent, but the like purely like video game character who's just sort of like a badass or is really funny or is really cool or it has one trait that like is so strong that it's made them more iconic, right? Than anything else across the years. And then I think there is what I would call like, the video games do this so well, so much better than I think almost any other medium does it. I don't want to call them the one-off, but they're like, they have like one sort of thing that they do. They're like usually like a supporting character or a side character, and they're either real funny or they have a really dramatic scene, or they come in for like 1 or 2 like moments and they help sort of like enrich the story, enrich the game, but they're not a, hey, I start at one place and I end at another place like type of character, right? They're more of like a lore character than they are like a like a functioning living being that goes from beginning to end. You know what I mean? So I tried to pick one from each of those things because like that I was having a really hard time picking characters. My list at first was just like, here are all these characters from like story-based like walking simulators, basically is what it is, because like these are the ones that have like the most like full-featured actual character arcs as far as like how you'd classically define those in like a dramatic sense, right? And I wanted to make sure I didn't just focus on that because we're doing best characters in a video game, and like it doesn't always matter. Sometimes what you do is just as important as like what's written for the character to say. You know what I mean? So I try to kind of give a breadth of that. Cody, do you have any sort of like criteria in your head when you were picking characters?
Yeah, I have one that's like really similar to yours, where like you're talking about like a character who like they come into a scene and like they make every scene better. Like, and for me, it's just an interesting character. I guess is the easiest way to put it. And so like that was like one of mine. I was like, well, what's a character who like anytime I think about that character, I'm like, yeah, I think of every scene they're in because they just like their performance is like over the top, but like not in a bad way, just like they're so good at it, you want to hear everything they're saying. The other one for me was like relatability, like a character that as they've gone on a journey, like I can relate to where they were and where they ended up. And then I think my last one really would be like, I guess growth, because that'll tie into like my favorite character is being able to watch a character start somewhere and then grow and evolve as a character and see where they end up is like truly fascinating. And like I think it's what makes a really good character for me is someone I can see, like you see in a video game, maybe just one or maybe a whole series, but you see this one character evolve to a point where like they're completely different from when you first started with them, and that's good for me.
Yeah, I mean that's really good. That's really good, and I think gives everyone a good sort of like idea of what our sort of bases are, because you're coming at it from very different perspectives in a lot of ways. So I think it'll be fun to talk about this stuff. Sky, it was your topic, so who you want to pick to start?
Okay, so I was going to say there's also a lot of overlap, so I went more with like a literary route, but the characters that I picked also kind of fall into your categories too as well. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna have some overlap. So yeah, it was my topic. So I will go first. And I had to pick. This was hard because it's a Mass Effect character, and Mass Effect is full of incredible characters. Like they're all so well written. They all follow the criteria that I set forth. But I had to pick one, and so one edges out above the rest for me, and that's Garrus Vakarian. And it's interesting because a lot of other people in our Discord and in our discussions also chose Mass Effect characters. They weren't a lot of Commander Shepards, we had a lot of Liaras, but I think I was the only one who said Garrus. So I want to explain why I think he's so important to the narrative and why he's such a good character. Did we have any overlap? If we have overlap, we can all talk about the character together.
No,
I've never played Mass Effect, so
no, Cody. You never played Mass Effect?
I've never played Mass Effect.
Oh, we have to change that. It's in my opinion, it's the best sci-fi you can get. It's so good.
It's one of my favorite series, and I had characters that kind of were like honorable mentions, but not on the main list.
Totally. Oh, I'm interested to know what you guys chose then if Garrus isn't on there because he's so cool. So I chose him because he fits into all three of my criteria. So he has the ordeal. So in Mass Effect 2, and this is where the spoilers come in, he tries to emulate Shepard throughout 1, 2, and 3. He sees Shepard as like his idea of a hero, his idea of this this perfect militant character, you know, like the perfect commander, the perfect person you can follow into battle. So as a Turian, he tries to emulate that because that's what Turians are. They're a militant race. That's what they're born and raised to do. So, you know, he tries to become a Spectre, and he can't do it. They tell him he's not qualified. So in 2, he decides to try and operate the way Shepard did and create a crew. And he creates this crew, and you never see it happen. It kind of happens in a comic book off screen, but his whole crew dies. And they die because, well, according to him, they die because of him. He wasn't a good enough leader. He wasn't strong enough. And as a result, he takes a blow to the face, he gets really hurt, he gets really damaged, his ego is in shambles, his confidence, it's just, he's beaten down. So that's his ordeal, and it kind of shapes, first of all, the narrative of 2 is the best one in my opinion. It's one of the best games I've ever played. And it is largely in part to the fact that it gives every single character a little bit of a spotlight in a way that the other ones don't. So he gets to have his like story arc. He starts to realize that like his ideals, he looks at things in black and white, but he doesn't see the gray. But at the same time, he also operates in the gray, but not in the way that Shepard would understand or approve of. So he's constantly growing in Shepard's crew. He's constantly learning how to, experience these issues that he has. And it's just, he's so well written in that they really try and showcase that, like, he's too human to be a Turian, but he's too Turian to be a human. So he's kind of on that fine middle line. And they really showcase that in the fact that he's just flawed. He's got a strong sense of justice. He has an inability to adhere to what he considers the red tape. So because of that, he gets into a lot of trouble. And he always looks for the fastest route, but not the best one. And that always gets him in trouble. And Shepard always corrects him on that and says, well, the fastest route's not always the best one. The best route is the best route. And you're not picking it. And that's why you're ending up in these pitfalls and why you're ending up in these situations. And if you romance him, it's actually a really cute scene because he brings up the fact that he just wants something to go right. And nothing ever does. At least to him, nothing ever goes right. So in that way, he's got the flaw. He's got in the context of the story, there's no Shepard without Garrus, and there's no Garrus without Shepard. He's one of the most consistent characters in that narrative, regardless of Paragon or Renegade. He doesn't leave. He's consistent throughout the story. So in that reason, I think he's probably one of the most important characters to the narrative, and he's the most important character to the crew, one of the most at least. And so I think Garrus does a lot for the story. He's consistent, he grows, but he never becomes something that isn't himself. He never becomes a phantom or shell of the character he was introduced as. It's very refreshing. And like I said, I can't get enough of that game. That trilogy is incredible, and I recommend it to pretty much anybody who enjoys even just sci-fi a little bit. It's probably some of the best written sci-fi I've ever consumed. So yeah, that's Garrus. I really love that character.
That's great. Yeah, Garrus is fantastic. Like an amazing, amazing character. If I had picked one for Mass Effect, it would have either been Liara or Morton Solus, the Doctor from 2. I just think he has like one of the best stories in the entire like second game, like his whole sort of like idea. And I just love him. And again, one of the things we're talking about my criteria. One thing is like he's also a great like one-off character, like one of those like lore characters where like he's kind of ridiculous, like he talks really weird, but he has, and he's good for comic relief, but he also has something like a little bit deeper going on. Those games are just full of great characters.
Yeah, it was hard to pick, really hard, but I had to give it to my Turian. Couldn't help it.
Awesome. My mouse is acting like a real fool right now, and I don't know why.
All technical issues tonight, Bobby.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck is going on. Jesus. Anyway, the curse of tonight. Okay, Sky, who do you want to go next?
Cody, let's find out who your first character is.
Okay, so real quick, are we doing these like are you guys doing like 3, 2, and then like number 1?
Oh no, I went number 1, but like I guess it's up to you.
I'm gonna do number 3. I'm starting
okay, cool. Let's do it.
Okay. So my number 3 is gonna be Kratos from the God of War series.
Ooh.
And this kind of ties into both relatability and growth. I know Bobby likes to give Kratos crap because in the original games,
I don't know what you're talking about.
He's just a rage machine. And I would agree, like 100%. I think in the first 2 games, especially, like that's what those games are like made for. They're honestly dude bro games where you just got in there and button mashed and killed mythical monsters. But I felt towards the end of 3, I feel like they really realized Kratos could be a character. And I feel like in the most recent God of War 2018 game, that they really stepped that up and took that to the next level. At the end of God of War 3, you really start to see that Kratos regrets like everything he's done leading up to like him killing his father Zeus. Spoilers for God of War series from 7 years ago at this point.
God of War 3 was
really-
only 7 years ago.
Probably more than that, honestly.
I think it was
Don't
like
age me
I
like
think it was
that.
like 10 years ago. I think
10 years ago? Okay, yeah.
I would
Yeah, because Ascension was like 2015, maybe?
Well, when did the PS4 came out in what 2015?
Yeah, and Ascension was on PS4, wasn't it?
No, Ascension was a PS3 game.
Was it? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Hold
so,
on,
I
I'm
don't-
figuring this out.
So you're talking.
There's-
I mean, there could have been overlap,
no
right? It could have been
way.
the PS3 when the PS4
Yeah.
was out, but I don't think so. I feel
It's 2010.
2010.
Oh
Okay.
my god.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Okay.
feels way
Wow.
longer ago than what you're saying.
Um,
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, so like towards the end of God of War 3, like you really start to see that, and I attribute a lot of that to the character of Pandora in that game, because Kratos likens Pandora to his daughter that he murdered. And so I really like towards the end of God of War 3, I was like, okay, like man, I hope they continue this series. And then we got Ascension, and that really wasn't. I mean, Ascension was good, and like it showed like him before like becoming the rage machine more so. And then in God of War 2018, we really get to see Kratos step up and become a dad, but also kind of accept that like, yeah, he's a monster. Like he is filled with rage. And so Bobby knows this pretty well. A long time ago, I was very angry and like took it out on everybody. And it was just bad. I was a bad person. I'll admit it. Like, and so like watching Kratos go from that to what he was in the 2018 game, like it was relatable to me because like I eventually hit a point where I was like, why am I so angry? Like, what am I angry about? And seeing Kratos kind of accept that, like, you know, the line is Athena's talking to him in the game. And he's like, you cannot change. You will always be a monster. And Kratos like picks up the Blades of Chaos and goes, I know, but I'm not your monster any longer. And like, that hit me so hard because like I finally just like before the game had come out, I'd really accepted like I'm tired of being angry about everything. I'm tired of being mean to people for no reason. And I really calmed down as a person. And then playing God of War and seeing Kratos go through like a similar journey to what I was going through in life, like it made Kratos one of my favorite characters of all time because like I got to relate to him in that moment. And like I'm super excited for Ragnarok coming out this year.
Oh yeah.
Just to see like what they do with him there. I'm a little bummed that we're only getting 2 games of the Norse because like originally it was supposed to be a trilogy. Because I would love to see like what happens with him and Atreus. Like how does he continue growing as a character? How does Atreus grow as a character? You know. And
I was actually gonna say on a comment of God of War, like the new one, the God of War 4. The beginning scene of that game is beautiful. Like it's sad, but it's beautiful. Like who would have thought that you'd start that game chopping down a tree to ritually say goodbye to something we never thought he'd have again, a spouse and a family. And it's really sad. But it's a quiet, like contemplative moment with a character that's never really had that before.
Yeah.
That game was
Yeah,
brilliant.
It's one of my favorite. I think it is ultimately behind Bloodborne, like one of my favorite games of all time. And yeah, there's so many scenes in the game where like you truly get to see like I think what they were like starting to ink at in God of War 3 comes 100% full circle in God of War 4, 2018, whatever you want to call it. And it's great to see a character like Kratos have that moment where like he's no longer just remembered as the dude bro smashing everything to pieces guy. He's a father. He's a dimensional character.
Yeah. He's a dimensional character that can still do that.
Still do that,
Because he
yes,
does,
100%.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's
The game is great.
great.
Well, I mean, I think a lot has to do with the fact that the people who made the God of War games, when they first started making them, were young, angry dude bros, and now they're sad dads. Like that's like that's like the thing.
Cory Barlog has come a long way.
Yeah, Corey Log has come a long way.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I will never stop giving shit to like the original version of Kratos, who, just screamed and did very, very misogynistic things to women and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the new game, he's great in it. I will say that like unexpected for a God of War game, but when you look at like Sony's like first party track record now, like Sad Dad is like it is like the go-to. It's like
it is all
these games like, Sad Dads, like that's like all like this is like all it is now. Is like if you're the protagonist in a Sony first party game, you're a sad dad. Like that is like their thing now.
They got to get the women involved. The women love sad dads. Bringing in that new demographic, we're always there, but now we're there in the front, rooting for sad dad.
Rooting for the sad dads. No, that's I would say that I'm not surprised that Kratos is on your list, Cody. So I don't really have, like, you spoke about the order, Cody. I don't really have a ranking of like an actual order of mine, like 3, 2, 1, because they're all kind of like different for me. But I will. So my first one is going to be like what I mentioned as like the like video game protagonist does one thing really well, and so makes them like iconic and great. And that would be Samus Aran would be my first one. We'll fill that slot. It was a contest between Samus and Snake. I'm not gonna lie for this like Snake slot. But the problem with Snake is that there's 3 different ones of them that are actually like across the games, and so it's very tough to be like it's my favorite character.
Totally, just to pick one.
But Samus, even speaking just of the most recent, of Metroid Dread, I think what's so great about her in that game, and it sort of crystallizes the thing that everyone has always loved about Samus who loves Samus, which is that she is just absolutely the best and most confident person in the galaxy at what she does, right? Like, she has struggles, she has difficulties. But like never ever in any of those moments where you see like her in a cutscene or her in like one of those like QTEs, like she is just like, no, this is what I do. I do it well. Even that like one little dialogue scene with her and like the Chozo or whatever, when she basically, the one line she says is basically like, I'll find him and I'll end this. Basically, I'll get it done. Essentially, is what she says. So her only line like in the entire game. And I really enjoy stories in general about people who are just good at the thing that they do. And I mean, there is like lore depth to Samus's character, right? She is like this like part human, part Chozo like being that was kind of created, and she's kind of stuck between 2 worlds, and there's a big storyline that goes from like the first Metroid all the way through the Metroid Dread, and there's the Prime story as well. But like, the storytelling in those games, except for Other M, which is the worst of all of them. They try to explicitly like get into her and who she is, and that game is explicitly bad because it is the opposite of what I'm talking about, which is that she is like a subservient, sort of unconfident, like person who needs to be told what to do and how to do it and where to do it in order to like achieve her goals, which is like the opposite of what she has been in all the other things. But again, it's just like one of the things where a lot of it is what you do, right? It's like how you're handling the character, how the thing the character is doing in the game that you're doing, the world around it. And is it exclusive to video games, right? Because she doesn't say very much ever. Like and so it isn't a thing where like, oh, I love like this study in character development and theme, like about Samus. It's not about that, but it is about the fact that like, I think like she's one of the most satisfying characters in games to me. So, and that is why I picked her for sort of like this like video game character, slot.
Hell yeah.
And of all the protagonists who don't speak, she is my favorite. So that's a big part of it.
That takes a lot of careful consideration and craft to make a character that doesn't speak. that iconic, you know? Like, it's all action. There's something really special about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this scene, at the beginning of Metroid Dread, Metroid does this really cool thing, if people out there haven't played it or whatever, is that it's a 2D, it's 3D characters on a 2D plane, like this camera is 2D, but at certain moments the camera just sort of like pulls in and switches perspective, and you get more of these like close-up sort of like 3D cutscenes, and it happens like dynamically in the battles a lot of time. And at the end of like the first boss battle, she does the thing where like she's walking away from the boss she just beat, and that boss starts to move, and like without even looking, she like turns around and just like shoots it, you know, as she's walking away. Like, you know, cool guys don't look at explosions, like sort of moment. And it's just like, yep, this is who she is. Like, this is, you know, this, it's not showy. She's not celebrating, but she's just damn good at what she does. And I really like that a lot.
Awesome. No, that's a really good choice. Definitely. Like, it's hard to find somebody who's, you know, plays video games and has never heard of Samus.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah.
great choice. So leading into that, actually right off of that, giving like bombastic characters that are just really, really good at one thing, and they're defined by a core personality trait. Dante from Devil May Cry is my next character. He's like, he exemplifies that. Have either of you ever played a Devil May Cry game before?
I love the Devil May Cry series so
Yeah,
much.
Cody, I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew we were going to get along.
My favorite Devil May Cry game is the one that I think they want to try to forget about, which is that DMC, like the one that's just called DMC, the remake or whatever that they did, or the reboot, whatever it was. I don't know. The Ninja Theory game.
Ninja Theory one, yeah.
The Ninja Theory
That's
one.
so interesting. 'Cause, like, that's an opinion that would get you like crucified on the internet.
I know. Trust me. I've shared this opinion many times before, but like that is the one that I like the best. I played that one. I played 4, and I played the 5, right? The most recent one that came out.
5 was excellent. Oh my gosh. But on that topic, it's really interesting that you brought that up, because he's a totally different character in that one. Like they took everything that Dante was and they kind of like fucked it up. But
well, I think that game is not to interrupt you, not to like derail this conversation, but I think that game is an explicit like parody of what like those games were, and story wise, you know what I mean? Like, I think it was sort of like, because that game is very much a satire about a lot of things. But I will go to the mat for that boss fight where you fight like the talk show host, like the Fox News host.
No, it is cool. You fight him in the like the TV screen.
Yeah, that fight is cool as shit.
The game had style. The game's soundtrack was awesome. You know what? I played it. I had to play it.
Anyway, go back to your Dante conversation.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, we'll have a conversation about that later.
Yeah.
Anyways, so, you know, he falls into all of my 3 criteria, but he also falls into yours, which is why I said we would have overlap in terms of, you know, why we chose these characters. So it's interesting because a lot of people don't look at Dante as a character that's well developed or a character that has any type of real depth, unless you kind of play these games outside of the lens of, oh, they're a beat 'em up. You know, like we got to get that super stylish score. That's all it is to some people. It's just a really cool action game with a really corny protagonist. But he's really well written, in my opinion. He's got the ordeal. In Devil May Cry 3, for example, you know, he loses his brother. And that whole game is about that. He names his shop after that ordeal. There's no Dante without that ordeal. You know, he exists in the fact that, you know, everyone knows who he is. He's immediately powerful because of his lineage and his bloodline, and he's immediately known as powerful. That's the interesting thing about these games, is they're not easy. They're even on the easiest difficulties. They're difficult games. But in the narrative, it's like if you lose, it's a totally different reality, because he walks into those fights and it's like, I know I'm tough shit. I know I'm just gonna step on you, and I'm gonna make fun of you, and I'm gonna tell you your shit, and that's it. He's too strong. He knows he's strong. It's part of his cocky, debonair attitude that makes him so iconic, right? But it's interesting for that reason. So, you know, he's got his ordeal, kills his brother at the end. Well, his brother kind of kills himself, but, you know, in one same thing, another situation with his brother. But the initial ordeal would be he loses his parents in a fire, well, his mother in a fire, and he thinks his brother dies there as well. So he has a tragic upbringing. Probably didn't help with his like snarky shithead attitude in 3 either. But see, these are things that like you get out of like extra content. Like there's books, there's a comic book in particular. There's like a Japanese like a manga and stuff like that you can read that kind of delves a little further into that. So those are extra source materials. They don't really count, but they do come through in terms of his character. Even in number 5, it really goes into his past. You see some cutscenes and stuff about that. And he, despite the fact that he's this very powerful character, he has flaws as a result of those ordeals. So he fits in really, really well into that category. His existence is immediately justified because there's no Devil May Cry without Dante. Like, hello. You can't even, in 5, they're trying to pass the torch, which is like a common thing that Capcom tends to do with its characters. They pass it on to Nero, which in my opinion, in 4, he was all right. In 5, he's awesome. But Dante still plays a huge role even in 5 because there's no Devil May Cry without Dante. So he's always going to be there. He's always going to be contributing to the plot. And he also has a very consistent behavior across all of those games. There's an interesting umbrella that all of my favorite characters fall under, and it's dumbasses with a heart of gold. So he's a dumbass with a heart of gold. Mm-hmm. And I love me a dumbass that just wants to, he's cool, he's cocky, he's going to save somebody, he's going to brush it off and be like, oh, it wasn't a big deal, it's whatever. But, he did that because he wanted to save that person. He's a good character. He's a good person deep down. Despite the lineage, he's more human than anything else. And they always drive that home with these narratives. It's, he's a devil, but he has these human characteristics. And I think he's just great. And he's so much fun. I just turned our podcast into a meme without realizing it. Because do you ever heard of the meme where featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series?
Oh, yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah. We're going to put that in the thumbnail and use it.
Yeah.
It's going to be so good.
Dante's definitely one of those characters that, like I was talking about, they're just interesting. Like they come into a scene and they chew up scenery, but it's great. Like everything he does is just amazing. Like his one-liners are fantastic, and yeah, I love Dante so much. And I also love Nero, but I will be sad if in Devil May Cry 6 if it's mainly Nero focused and doesn't feature as much Dante.
Who's the one in Devil May Cry 5 who the emo boy who reads the book or whatever when he's fighting?
Oh.
He's literally called V.
Oh, V. That's right.
That's on the nose.
That's right. That's right. It's V. That's right.
Yeah. That's an interesting character.
I like that character.
He's got the best taunt in the game. He just pulls out his little violin and he just starts playing, and his little demons start kicking everyone's asses. They ooze style.
Yeah.
I love those games so much.
You also, Sky, you're a big character, a big stylish action game fan overall, right? Because you're a big Bayonetta fan as well.
Yeah. So that's actually. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because stylish action games are my favorite genre of game to play. I find them satisfyingly difficult. They always have a bombastic, ridiculous narrative. The main characters in there are always incredibly powerful in the context of the narrative. So you always feel like a total badass when you're playing them. It's very satisfying. The music's always really good in those games. I like having adrenaline punch me right in the eye when I play these things. It's so addictive. Like I loved Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. That's the one. Also, a really good game that's making a really interesting comeback. It's apparently super relevant again, and I don't know why. I think
a YouTuber named Jacob Geller, I think, did a big video essay on that, and then someone else did a video essay, and it just blew up again.
The domino of video essays.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. Maybe we'll get another one. Soon, I hope. But no, I'm counting down the days. Actually, this is going to sound super immature, but there are 69 days until Bayonetta 3 comes out.
Nice.
That's right now.
Nice.
Nice.
I sent out a Discord message to everyone today, and it said 69 plus will see this message, and I said, nice.
Nice. No, we're just a bunch of adults, whatever.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
I don't know. Yesterday I was playing Fortnite, and I killed Naruto with a lightsaber as Daredevil. So And I thought that was real cool. That was right after I Kami-Kami-Ha'd someone as Daredevil off the Nimbus cloud. So I feel like a little kid playing with like toys right now. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like when you're doing it. Basically,
That game shouldn't exist, but it does.
It does. It's
we're
true.
better for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Absolutely. All right, Cody, I think you're next.
Yes. So it would not be my list without an MMO character on there.
Of course.
And my second one is going to be Emet-Selch from Final Fantasy 14.
Emmett.
So like, I was telling Bobby and Sky this. I really don't want to spoil this, but like I have to if I want to talk about him.
All right, so this is big spoilers, right, for Final Fantasy 14.
Spoilers.
Okay.
Like this is Shadowbringers, which is the second to most recent expansion.
That's the one is that the one that Tom Holland was promoting when he was
I think so.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it was like Tom Holland and like
what?
Hannibal Buress or something like lived together in a house, I believe. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna look into that after. It's hilarious.
Yep. Yeah, look up the ads.
So Emet-Selch is the definition of interesting.
Mhm.
He shows up and every word out of his mouth you are just drawn to because not only is his mannerisms, he's just so like what's the word I want to use here? He just doesn't care. Like, but like he's talking about like end of the world stuff and he's so just like lackadaisical about it and it's amazing. So Emet-Selch he's an ancient, which is like the original race of the universe that Final Fantasy 14 is set in. And his people use this thing called creation magic. And one day his creation magic like ran amok and it started creating monsters that were killing everybody. And it was bringing upon the end of days. And so a group of the ancients got together and decided, well, we need to stop this. We'll sacrifice some of us to summon this god, Zodiark, and he'll protect us. And so they do that. But Emmett and a few other ancients kind of get out of there and are able to live in like this what is called the in-between. And he lives for thousands of years wanting his people back. Like he's like, we sacrificed hundreds of us and I want my people back. And so he devises a plan of how he's going to get it back. And he enacts that plan for 1,000 years. He starts the Garlemald country pretty much in Final Fantasy 14. And he's a villain. Like he's a 100% villain. He murders thousands of people. But he's so interesting the entire time because it's bad what he's doing, but like you kind of understand where he's coming from in a weird way because he just wants his people back. He wants his family back, his friends. Like there's stories outside of the game that you can read where like he talks about the people that he lost, like his best friends who you see later on in Endwalker. And it's sad. Like it's sad reading the stuff about this character who you should really despise. And so he really becomes prevalent in the Shadowbringers expansion, where when you first are kind of like really getting to know him, he's kind of on your side. Like he helps you guys. He brings back a major character from the story, from your group, the Scions. He saves their life because he wants to see like where y'all are going. What are y'all going to do? Because I think in the end, like the character you play in Final Fantasy 14 is called the Warrior of Light. And I think he kind of hopes that the Warrior of Light will join him. And obviously, we're a good guy. We're never going to join the bad guy. And like, it's ramping up, and like Emmett's really starting to show his like true colors. But like, he's 100% committed to bringing back Zodiark to rescue his people. And the entire time, you still can't help but feel like I don't hate this guy. Like he's interesting. Like I want him to like just realize that like we can't. Because what he wants to do is he wants to sacrifice the 14 realms that happened after the splintering, which is what happened when Zodiark saved the universe. And he wants to sacrifice all 14 of those. He would murder millions because each of those 14 realms has millions of people in them, all to save his people. And we, as your character, as the Warrior of Light, the good guy, like just you can't do that. Like it's not what you're about. And so ultimately, you do end up defeating Emmett. And a big thing for me when it comes to like finding a favorite character is like a line that just sticks with you forever. And Emmett, like, as he is fading away for what you think is the last time you'll see him, he says, remember us. Remember that we once lived, referring to himself and the ancients that have been gone now forever. And I don't know, it just stuck with me like so hard because like he's a character that you in every right should hate because he's the Garlemald people like murdered millions. He's murdered millions at this point. Like he's just a bad guy, but like you can't help but feel for him. And I think that just he's an interesting character and that I don't know, like you do end up seeing him later on in the game, kind of like a pre him becoming a bad guy. And like seeing like his reaction when you tell him like what he ends up becoming is fascinating. I'm not going to spoil that stuff because that's an Endwalker. That's the most recent expansion. It's great. I want everyone to play that. But yeah, Emet-Selch is just Emet-Selch is a character that for every reason you should hate him, you find a way to like him, and he is honestly one of the best bad guys in video games ever. And it kind of sucks that Final Fantasy XIV is one of those games where you have to dedicate hundreds of hours to play.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
it's so worth it to get to like moments like this with Emet-Selch. And there's for every time I tell somebody they should play Final Fantasy XIV, I know there's like, come on, but it's worth it. It really is.
So Final Fantasy XIV is so I played it and beat it, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I really feel for you in terms of that explanation. I'm also really happy one of us picked a villain because villains are also very well written, depending on how you can humanize them and what kind of motivations and goals you can give them. Just as an example, it's not a video game, but Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
One of the best villains in my opinion ever. His arc is fantastic, but he's given that humanizing, that arc that kind of redeems him. And I wouldn't say that Emmett gets that, but he does. Like I cried at the end of Endwalker. I did, and I didn't think I'd ever cry for him, but I did. And it takes a lot of humanizing and writing to kind of bring you to the point where like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever cry for this guy, but I am.
Yeah. He's definitely one of those characters that like I don't know if we'll ever see him again in Final Fantasy XIV, but where he left in Endwalker, I will like always treasure that. Like I was just a mess at that
everyone
point in the
was.
game.
I think if everyone was,
I was just because like leading up to like when you last see him is this a whole thing, and then him saying goodbye. Just I was a mess, and then like this is so tough for me because there are so many characters in Final Fantasy XIV that I wanted to talk about, and like I ultimately landed on him, and like I think we'll do honorable mentions afterwards. I have like at least 2 more Final Fantasy XIV characters.
Totally.
So, yeah.
I was going to say, Bobby's laughing because I don't think he's ever going to play it. It is literally a 100-hour graphic novel. Like, it's so big.
I will give Bobby props. He started it. He made a Taylor Swift character.
I did.
And so I'm proud of him for that.
Yes.
So.
There's video evidence once existed of that. Yes. Yeah. I have like, it's not that I don't have like no interest in Final Fantasy 14 or MMOs in general. It's just, I just don't have the stamina to like, it's mostly because like, look, I played Elden Ring for 170 hours or whatever like that, but like, like I don't find the like gameplay part of MMOs, that type of MMO, particularly satisfying, so it's like, it's tough for me to like invest that time because I don't have like the core loop doesn't really like fascinate me that much. I love Final Fantasy 14 like as an academic like thing because it's insane like the journey the game has gone on right from like beginning to now, and I just love that. I love this idea that like this game can exist now in a time where people thought that these type of games were kind of not going to happen anymore, right? That WoW was going to be the biggest one until WoW was dead, and then that was going to be the end of them, and for this to exist and be so popular is very cool to me. And to be very popular for a very different reason than a lot of other MMOs end up being very popular for, which I think is like the coolest part of it, which is like the story and the characters, like you're talking about. Like they were very much able to take what makes Final Fantasy great and put it into MMO form, which that's very cool.
Production value of Final Fantasy 14 is unmatched. The music, it's incredible, and the music really plays a part in like how memorable those characters are for you and stuff like that. I think it's called Footfalls. I'm not sure if that's the name of the song. I'm gonna Google that later. But that's is it Footfalls? That song is like, it's the last song that plays in the last fight of that entire game. It's an unbelievable piece of music. So well composed, so memorable. Final Fantasy 14 is really something else.
Yeah, I love MMOs. Like I've played a bunch of them. Final Fantasy 14 was always that game where I was like, I just don't think I can get into it. And then it was like May of last year. I just was like, I'm gonna do it. And like I had a group of friends that played with me and stuff. And like I played 10 years of content over the span of like 6 to 8 months, and like do not regret it at all. Like it is so good.
Oh, that's right. When I played that Taylor Swift thing, you hadn't played the game. It was like
a little bit.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago. Because I remember asking you, I was like, Cody, like, have you played like? And you were like, no, like I tried it, but because if I was gonna play an MMO, I'm gonna ask Cody, give me the skinny on it. But yeah. So
but they also have done some really great. So we're gonna like way off the favorite 3 characters.
This is not a Final Fantasy 14 podcast, all right?
They have done some amazing stuff to get the game more new player friendly. Like they have revamped Realm Reborn, the first like major part of the game.
The first 60 hours of the game or whatever.
Yeah. So definitely like worth, if you're interested in it, do the free trial, get you up to Heaven's Sword. Heaven's Sword is the up until Endwalker best expansion of that game. But yeah. All right, sorry. Back to our favorite characters.
I just think it's so funny when you talk to Final Fantasy 14 people. You're like, oh, this new stuff is so amazing. Like and you're like, oh, okay, so and the game will let you skip, right? It'll be like, okay, you can just skip to this, and then they make people who are watching the video version. They make the same exact face that Cody just made at me, which is like, but really, you need to play the other 200 hours if you really want to. And it's like, all right, like.
There's no winning.
There's no winning.
So, like, there are these like competitive raiders from World of Warcraft came and played Final Fantasy just to see what the rating was like, and they story skipped, and it was the biggest drama in the Final Fantasy community because they were like, "You're not real players. Like, stop this. Go back to your World of Warcraft." And I was like, "Oh no, stop! Be nice.
Oh
be
boy."
Nice.
Newcomers are just trying to have fun.
So you spoke. I'm gonna sort of like piggyback off of your character because Sky, you mentioned villains. Wheatley from Portal 2, who is a character voiced by Stephen Merchant, once again, of the original British Office fame. Again, spoilers for a game that came out in 2009, but Portal 2 starts, you sort of wake up much like you do in Portal 1, but it's like all of these years later from the events of Portal 1. And the facility is derelict, and you sort of like, you're about to basically be killed, basically. You're about to be, and this little like orb robot comes, and English voiced orb robot comes and saves you and gets you out of it because they want to escape. And sort of you're kind of put into, the Portal 2 is kind of, you're going through like all these like destroyed versions of the puzzles that you've played in Portal 1. Basically, and then the game opens up huge after that, like, whatever. But Wheatley is, this nebbish sort of, self, loathing, self sort of like, going after himself all the time. So you're a guide at first, and then halfway through the game, it flips over, and you do this thing where Wheatley's supposed to sort of like, you're probably not going to get Wheatley to like kind of like the main like brain, right? You're like where GLaDOS would be. And he's supposed to sort of like let you out and like kind of like, kind of end this sort of cycle. But instead, like he goes kind of power hungry and crazy and sort of like kind of shoots you into the next part of the game, which is like this, like when you kind of go through you had to go through the facility of Aperture Science, which is also, it's just a great game. It's like one of my favorite games of all time. And so Wheatley goes from like this nebbish, funny robot to like this really kind of like ego tripped, power hungry, megalomaniacal like ruler who is like, trying to kill you at every turn, just like GLaDOS was. And you've got GLaDOS sort of like on your shoulder as like a potato, through the rest of that game. And she was nearly the character I picked for this as well, because she's also a great character. But you mentioned, Cody, about like lines and stuff like sticking out in your head, or you just remembering things, and that's what kind of sticks with you. The opening scene of Portal 2, where Wheatley sort of starts the game going, starts the plot of the game sort of moving and getting, was so funny and so charming and so different than I'd experienced right in other games of that time and around that ilk. Like, we're used to having like these type of comedic performances in games like this outside of like adventure games or whatever. So it's just so memorable to me. And he goes on such a good journey. Also, and again, part of this is, because we talked about before, games, it's mechanics as well as story and writing. The way you beat him at the end of Portal 2, which is by like creating a portal on the moon and then and then there to suck him up into the moon and whatever, is so great. It's such a great ending. It's such this kind of like natural like thing where you're like, wait a second, the moon looks an awful lot like the same like texture looking thing that I can make portals on. And then you shoot it and it happens. And it's just one of the most memorable things in games to me. The whole kind of experience with that game, just love that character so much. And oddly, is the character that has, I think, the most depth and change of all of the characters that I'm talking about today. And out of nowhere, right? Like out of total nowhere. And I just love that, because one of my favorite things in drama, one of my favorite things in like dramatic things, like dramatic writing, dramatic whatever, is sort of the subversion, playing against type kind of switcheroos when things happen that you least expect, and this is one of those things. So I absolutely just love it. It's a lot about performance, which is a lot for me with characters. Is like I think performance can cover up a lot of mediocre writing, even though writing in Portal 2 is fantastic. And a bad performance can ruin good writing in many ways. So
absolutely,
a lot of it is performance for me, but it just is like, it just is it was the first character I thought of when we were like, let's do our top 3 characters. He was the first character I thought of. So Wheatley from Portal 2.
Well, to leave an impression like that on you is something special too.
Mhm.
Just, you could, because I couldn't instantly think of a character. I love too many characters.
Yeah.
The fact that you're able to just pick one, that's a testament to the staying power and the like impression that character left on you. It's really cool.
Yeah. All right, Sky, I think we did your last one, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So this is, did you ever think you were going to be on a podcast with a bunch of like RPG players that love Final Fantasy before, Bobby?
To clarify, just one Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to add a Final Fantasy character to the mix. So, Zack from Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. That's the prequel to the original Final Fantasy.
You're going
VII.
deep cut. You're going deep.
Man. It came out on the PSP, 2009 or something. So like we're talking like this is and they're remastering it this year, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy that day one. I'm going to cry again because that game tore my heart into like paper shreds and scattered it into the wind.
Well, Zack is going to be a big part of the remake of part 2 of the remake, right? So
I don't know how I feel about that yet. I'm really hoping they do his character justice, because part of what made him so memorable and part of what made him such a good character was the sacrifice that he made at the end of Crisis Core. It's very important to his character, his development, and the impression he left behind. So the ordeal for this character is he goes through his entire life wanting to be a hero. And his idea of a hero is, a soldier first class. It's Sephiroth, it's Angeal, it's Genesis. It's these powerful militant type characters that work for Shinra. A lot of people in this world don't quite know that Shinra is a bad guy yet. But they're basically like they're climate change incarnate. They're not good people. They are destroying the planet. They're manufacturing wars. They're awful. It's awful. They're bad company. But he works for them because his idea of a hero is these soldiers first class. So his whole life is leading up to this moment. He's a soldier second class at the beginning of the game. But he becomes the first class. Throughout the narrative, it has its slow progressions, his little character moments where he starts to, I guess, become the type of person who could be a soldier first class. So he's under the tutelage of Angeal. His ordeal is that Angeal dies, and he dies by his own hand. So Zack has to put Angeal out of this horrible situation, and it really changes his whole perspective on the idea of heroism. And it's really good. He's happy-go-lucky. He's a dumbass with a heart of gold. He's just a very energetic, lovable character. And then by the end of the game, he's a little broken. He's a little damaged by his experiences, but he's consistent. He never changes in that he wants to still be somebody who's a hero. He leaves an impression behind on someone, even if it's just one person. If he could do that, then he accomplished his goal. He was a hero. And that's what he does. So his existence is justified in that there's no Final Fantasy VII without Zack. Cloud is Cloud because of Zack's sacrifice at the end of Crisis Core. And there's no Cloud without Zack. Cloud wouldn't even have been there if it wasn't for Zack. So like it's crazy to think about how much that character influenced the narrative of Final Fantasy VII. And it's funny because in Final Fantasy VII, you only ever see him in flashbacks. You only ever see him in passing, some codexes and stuff. Like you don't ever really, he's a character, he's important, you don't know why. And when you find out why he's important, it's like a quick cutscene. It's nothing special. So the fact that he got his whole game and the fact that like they were able to flesh that out is really important to the narrative of the whole universe of Final Fantasy VII. There are important characters, like Aerith, still important, Sephiroth, still important, but there's no Cloud without Zack. And I think that's really important to, the narrative of that game. So he's so sweet. He's just a really sweet character. He goes through hell. He never wavers. He's always confident. He's always putting on a smile for other people. He's just lovely. And I think he really stuck with me for that reason. I bawled my eyes out at the end of that game. I played it on Twitch. Actually, I live streamed it because I was able to, get a copy and everything like that. But yeah, at the end of it, I was a mess. And I had some viewers that were also like, yo, stop, you're going to make me cry. And I was like, you damn well better join me in my suffering, man. This is a group effort. Like, we all have to be sad together. But I don't know. I really, really hope they don't fuck him up in these remakes because, like, if you undermined that sacrifice, then what was even the point? Like, I really hope they don't Kingdom Hearts it, for lack of a better term. But I know he's involved. Like,
they've said that all of the story is going to get more and more different as these like parts come out, basically.
And that's fine. I think that's a refreshing take on a story that's, that old, and that influential. I just hope they give it the treatment it deserves. And I'm going to be kind of critical of Zack's role in that because he's one of my favorite characters, right? And I think he's just so wonderful. So I look forward to seeing more of him, but I'm also very cautious.
It's crazy. So it was released in 2007 first.
It was 7. Okay.
2007. It's crazy that it was 10. They released it 10 years after Final Fantasy VII came out. That's crazy. And it was directed by Tabata, who'd made 15. Directed 15. That's well.
It. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I never really looked that far into it, but man, 15 was a mess. But I don't think it was.
Yeah, but 15 was a mess, but it was good.
It was good.
It was good. And when they were done like fixing it or whatever, which was well after I had played it, because I played it like right when it came out.
Was that when they added the fishing? to it?
No, the fishing was in there from the beginning,
was
my
always
friend.
there,
The
yeah.
fishing was
I
always
thought they
there,
had
my
a
friend.
huge goal
No.
with adding fishing. Okay,
There
sorry.
is first of all, there is an entire like chapter missing from like the original release, and there was this one infamous chapter of Final Fantasy, I think it was chapter 13 of Final 15, where they take all your weapons away and you have to like go through that, and everyone hated it because like
I remember you.
it made no sense story wise because there was parts missing in and around it. So they fixed it after that, but but it was a very weird situation with that game. I don't know.
The biggest issue I had with 15 was they DLC baited it. So it was like the characters all left at one point.
Yeah.
Narrative, and you don't know why they left. You just know that eventually they come back in some heroic moment or some dramatic moment, and then you find out that it's like, oh, we're gonna put the DLC right there, and you're gonna pay $25 for it.
Yeah.
And sucker me, I bought all of them because Prompto was my favorite from 15. I loved him. I almost considered him for this list because again, Prompto was one of these characters that was just really sweet. Had the whole character growth arc. The little scene where he's sitting on the billboard outside of the diner with Noctis on the roof there, and he has this little conversation about like how he thought he was useless and how he thought he would never be a friend of a prince, and he's worthless. He's the worst person in the group because he has nothing to contribute. And Noctis reassures him. Let's just say Prompto's on my my honorable mention list then, because he's just like he's the same type of character as Zack. They're sweet, lovable goofballs, and like you just need one in your life. You need a sweet, lovable goofball. So,
I loved all our car boys in Final Fantasy 15.
The boy band.
Yeah.
I'll say the only interaction I've had with Final Fantasy 15 is in Final Fantasy 14. There's a crossover event where you get the car.
Oh, okay.
And I got the car, and it was really nice.
It was really cool to drive around and listen to old Final Fantasy music, like on the stereo when you're driving around. I mean, I would say now, I think it's still on Game Pass, like the Kingsglaive edition or whatever the hell they call it, like the like Royal edition of Final Fantasy 15 is like everything. It's worth playing. I would say it's not that long. Like they're not like it's not, I think I beat it in like 35 hours or something like that or whatever it was, but it's a good game. All right, Cody, your last character.
So back in high school, I played Red Dead Redemption.
Okay.
And it was like an informative game.
So
I
old.
know I just aged a lot. It was a very informative game for me. Like, it was one of the first games that like I played where I like paid attention a lot to the story. And like I remember going and seeing around the time after Red Dead Redemption came out, my friends and I went to the movies and we saw it was a country movie. It was a remake of an old John Wayne one. It had Rooster Cogburn in it. Oh, what's it called?
Are you talking about Walking? No. What do you?
I can't remember.
Oh, True Grit. You're talking about True Grit.
True Grit. It was the remake of True Grit.
The remake of True Grit. Sorry, yes. Yeah.
We went and saw that because we had all played Red Dead Redemption and just like loved Westerns.
It's a good remake.
And so fast forward, and they announce Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out, and I have no fucking interest in this game. Like, I'm like, no. Like, Red Dead Redemption 1 is great. I don't need a prequel. What are you talking about? And like, at the time, Sam and I were doing Geek Art Games, and I was like, I'm not playing that game. And then I ended up playing that game, and it was almost my game of the year that year. Mainly due to the main character, Arthur Morgan. Arthur Morgan is my favorite video game character of all time. He has such a journey in that game. This is where it gets weird for me because I played him as good as you can be in that game because I mean you're playing an outlaw. So I don't know if you go full bad guy, does that ruin the story bits for anything? But I played him as mainly a good character. So Arthur Morgan is part of Dutch's gang, which you end up in Red Dead Redemption 1. You go and hunt down Dutch and other members of the gang and kill them. And Arthur Morgan is just a loyal character. He's loyal to Dutch. He's loyal to the gang. And watching that kind of like unravel as the game goes on, but watching how Arthur is doing everything he can to keep them together is a really beautiful journey. There's something about Roger Clark's performance as Arthur Morgan is so enthralling. Like everything he does, like just pulls you in. there's a scene where he's literally like on top of a carriage and a train is coming at him on train tracks, and you're like, oh my god, what are you doing? And he just doesn't budge. He's just there. And like, it is one of the coolest scenes in video games. And Arthur Morgan just like, he's a flawed character. Like he wants to not be in that life, but he can't help be in that life because he's loyal to the gang. And he ultimately ends up paying a huge price for it because he ends up getting tuberculosis, which back then it's just,
It's fatal.
hey, you're gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, keeps going, and I believe it's when they come back from the trip down to Mexico that like it gets bad. Like he is like constantly coughing up blood, and he kind of realizes like, I'm not long for this world. I gotta do everything in my power to like help out the gang. And that's also kind of when the Dutch stuff starts to unravel, where Dutch is really losing a lot of the gang to like his wackadoo ideas about how they just need one more big score and then they're all going to Tahiti. And it's so interesting to watch Arthur battle with that because he wants to be loyal to Dutch, but also like there are individual characters in the gang that he is also loyal to, like John and I'm blanking on other characters' names all of a sudden. But like watching that happen, and ultimately there's a line that he says when it's a side quest you can easily skip. He talks to this nun. He just calls her sister throughout the entire game. He talks to her periodically throughout the game. But there's one where he's sitting there and she's like, well, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm dying. I'm afraid. And like the emotion in Roger Clark's voice as Arthur in that moment, like just reduced me to tears. Like I was done. And ultimately at the end when Arthur, he sacrifices himself so that John can live. It was tragic because like you want him to survive, but like he can't survive because I played Red Dead Redemption 1. I know he's not around.
Right.
And he's just a character that like he sticks with you. Like I think there's another line somewhere in the game where a guy's like, he's like, Arthur, you're a good man. You lived your life, and at the end of it, you can say you're a good man. And like that just hits you in like the chest, like a shotgun blast. And like, I will say, Arthur passing away and then you going and killing the piece of shit weasel guy whose name I can't remember right now is one of the most like cathartic experiences in video games I've ever had. It was amazing.
Revenge, good old revenge.
Yeah. And yeah, like it cemented that like insane that like before the game came out, I was like no interest, and by the end of it, I was like, this game's amazing. It's like one of my favorite games of all time, and I owe a lot of that to Arthur Morgan, and just like he's such a good character. Like the journey from start to end with him is amazing to follow. So yeah.
I was going to say, you and I kind of have like a similar character there, like a character that, is doomed. You start the game with them, you get attached to them, and you're like, oh shit. Like, also, because you mentioned like lines that stick with you, I forgot to mention that my character, like Zack Fair, had the same kind of situation where he asked the audience at the end of the whole game, final line of the whole game, do you think I became a hero? So you were just saying that, like, like those lines that resonate with you. It's really cool. I've never played Red Dead Redemption. They were so long, and they really like intimidated the shit out of me for that reason. I think they came out when I used to actually work for GameStop. So I was able to get a copy, no problem, but I never had the time to play it. And I really should sit down and play them.
They're really good. I really hope this. I know I think Rockstar stopped making the remake. I think the focus on GTA 6.
I think so. I mean, all that stuff was right. None of that stuff was like officially announced ever. Yeah. But yeah, the word inside Rockstar is that it's all hands on deck on GTA 6 at the moment. Yeah.
If they ever come out with a remake of Red Dead Redemption 1, I will 100% play it. And I think that'd probably be the best way to play it because Xbox 360 was a great console, but like playing Red Dead Redemption 2 is like, God, this game is beautiful. God, I would love to see what Red Dead Redemption 1 is like in this art style and things like that.
They never put it on PC, did they? There was like a Red Dead Redemption 1 I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I don't think they ever did.
That was always a thing. Everyone's like, when are they going to put Red Dead Redemption on PC? When are they going to put Red Dead Redemption on PC? And I don't think they ever did.
No.
Really?
There's also
Nope.
It's like it seems like the perfect place to put it.
No,
That's
that was
so
weird at the
fascinating.
time because Rockstar was not doing a lot of PC stuff. They put out GTA 4 on PC and it was like a disaster. Like it was like it didn't run well. Like it was just terrible. It wasn't until like GTA 5 where they really like got it right with that and really sort of like broached that world or whatever. So
Are they on Game Pass? The Red Dead Redemption games?
wasn't there a weird thing a while back where like all of Rockstar's games just went away? Or was that
Really?
just on Steam?
that was just on Steam. That was,
just
on Steam.
They all went away.
They all went away because they started their launcher or whatever.
That's right.
And then
Oh.
and then there was the thing where they when they were putting out those remakes of the first 3 GTA games or their first GTA games, those terrible like remasters they did, they took down every other version of those games from like every store, so you couldn't buy them anymore. But yeah, no, I don't know. At one time or another, I felt like 2 was on Game Pass, but I think it might have been taken off of Game Pass.
Oh, what a shame, because Game Pass would have been the way for me to go. I would have did it there for sure.
Yeah.
Would have just been easier, like the easiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also a scene, and like there's whenever we do a music episode, there's a scene where he is riding by himself for an extended period of time, and the music that like cues in is like amazing. Like it just hits. I can't remember the name of the song. I think they performed it live at the Game Awards.
Ooh,
Whenever
shivers. I love live music.
It was so good. I will go back and watch the YouTube video of the Game Awards just for that live performance because it is just amazing.
If you can find it, you throw it in the Discord. I'd love to go see it.
I'll have to find it and send it.
Amazing.
Yeah. All right, Bobby.
This one is a really the last slot was like a really hard pick for me. And because I like everything in my like being was telling me like, pick one of the, like the Firewatch characters or the Night in the Woods characters or, any one of, or The Walking Dead, like the Walking Dead season 1, like Lee, because like those are all characters that I love. Right. And they all have very satisfying dramatic arcs that I think really work really well. But, and I'll talk about those kind of characters, a lot on these episodes of this podcast going forward. But I couldn't not put this character on the 3. And this kind of fits into like hey, this is like the one-off sort of like lore, character. And it's Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower from Bloodborne.
Okay.
No. I didn't know where we were going. I was like, where's the order of this?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So it is 2-pronged, right? One, it's From does obviously a great job of telling story through, place and mood and gameplay. Like they're very focused on like telling those stories through those things. And just for that section of the game and that fight in the game is, my favorite thing in Bloodborne. But, being a lore like nerd about Bloodborne, her story and what like the meaning behind her character and her journey and like this like really terribly sad, tragic thing that is her life, which is like, it's every character, right? And every From game is like extremely tragic. Nobody gets a good ending, right? In From games, but like this idea that, she sort of like dedicated her life to this cause, right? And particularly to this person, Garrus, the first hunter, and sort of the healing church and all this stuff. And then went on this sort of, crusade to this fishing village, and she saw these terrible, horrible, unconscionable things being done by the people that she thought were supposed to be doing the right thing, right? And basically gets so despondent by it that she throws her weapon, basically down a well and says like, I'm done with this. And then spends the rest of her life and unlife, right, guarding this area so that no one can come through, because she feels so guilty about what happened that she makes it her eternal mission, essentially, to guard what's ever left of these people and this orphaned great one and this whole basically past of the hunters that happened here. And, this idea that she doesn't care, she doesn't care why you're there. She just knows that you're not getting past her. Right. And, she kind of dies, when you beat her in the game, not really knowing, right? She doesn't know that you're going to go there and sort of like break the cycle, right? That's why you're there. Right. All she knows is that you're a hunter, and what she's seen of hunters is terrible. And, she never wants to see it happen again. And I just think like it's a great, and plus, and also like just what happens to sort of like her memory and visage, like in the waking world, in the real world, which is that this guy who she worshipped is a real fucking creep who like,
oh man,
makes like a doll out of her, like, and like imbues it with like, sort of life, but also like intimates that he like, has sex with it or whatever. Like, like it's like what a terrible, like, all this terrible stuff. And while she doesn't get a happy ending, she is one of the few characters in Bloodborne that's actually standing for something like right and true. And she's not, she's not doing it for any sort of selfish reason at all. Right. There's no power hungry. There's no trying to cover up her own mistake. She doesn't really care about that. Right. All she cares about is like, these people have dealt with enough. Like there's no reason for you to, go through. And it's also kind of like on both sides, right? Because on the other side, she's got this like kind of like asylum thing that she sort of like is over with, all these like lost, despondent, like experiments that went of the church that went terribly, terribly wrong, that she's also sort of like doing her best to sort of like guard and keep safe. So I love that as a character. And even though you don't get like, she has like, 3 lines of dialogue like in the entire thing.
That's what makes it so fascinating, right?
Yeah. I think that like just from a gameplay combined with lore perspective, she's just like top of the heap for me. As well as there are few cooler names than Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. Like it's
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
So yeah, that's my last one, is Lady Maria.
I love that. The fact that you can pick a character like that, like it's interesting because with like Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, they're so rich with lore, but you have to look for it. So
Yeah.
a lot of people probably don't even know that she has that type of story and that type of, that's why she's there. That's the context in which she's presented. But that's what those games do so well, right? They're so good at like environmental storytelling.
Yeah.
She's a great character. She's really cool.
It's funny. I was watching this streamer the other day, and she's playing Bloodborne. And she's a former, like, she used to work at Giant Bomb. And she's playing the game, and she's fighting Orphan of Kos. And the people in the chat, some people in the chat know the game, some people don't, right? And they're like, why is he hitting you with a shrimp? A big shrimp. And I was like, and I'm in the chat, I'm like, that's not a shrimp. That's his mother's placenta.
Oh God.
What an uncomfortable design for that character.
Yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. But yeah, there are a lot of great lore, characters throughout the From games that, you could definitely bring up in some of these places. But she's my favorite of those. So yeah, that's it for those.
I love that.
Do you have any honorable mentions, Sky?
So Prompto was the honorable mention I mentioned earlier, but he's also the type of character that went through a situation where he grew. He started off, hiding his insecurities and his flaws behind that chipper, happy-go-lucky personality, and then you find out, there's you just see cracks in that, and he starts to show his true colors when the situation becomes a little bit more dire and a little, harder to hide behind that type of persona. And you find out he's got this horribly tragic backstory. He used to be, as a child, he used to be like, had an eating disorder, and he was really, picked on and bullied as a kid as a result. And he had a chance encounter with Luna, the princess, and she told him, like, hey, be a friend to Noctis, and that's his whole motivation, is that. But he grows with those characters, and he becomes like his true self, like his potential comes out of it. He gets not so much a happy ending, and he to survive the end of the game, but he has to survive knowing that his best friend doesn't. So he grows in that situation as well. Mm-hmm. That's huge for those characters, because those characters are like family to each other. So losing one of them is it's like the worst case scenario, but they have to come to terms with the fact that that's going to happen. And that's like the whole last part of that game. So I really liked Prompto. I also found his quirkiness interesting, like with the camera and stuff like that. He treated it like a real road trip, which I thought was really endearing. He's a cute character, and I always thought he was really sweet. I don't believe I have any other extra characters. When I doubled down on my list, I was like, this is them and that's it. Does anybody else have any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I just have a couple to run through really quick. I mentioned May Borowski from Night in the Woods. I just love that, like, she's kind of a shithead, she's a good-hearted person deep down, but she kind of acts like a shithead. She makes the game has you making choices with her, like dialogue choices, and you're kind of like, I don't want to say either of these things. Both things are terrible, but you're like, but this is like how she is. It's who she is, and I think that's really great, and her journey is really, really good. GLaDOS from Portal 2, I mentioned before. Both characters from Firewatch, Henry and Delilah, they were both almost on this list for me. I just think like Firewatch is some of the best, most true writing of any game ever made, and the characters are so flawed but feel so real, and I love that. Lee from The Walking Dead I mentioned, and the one that really almost took one of the spots was Revolver Ocelot from the Metal Gear.
Oh yes, if I had to pick, a Metal Gear character.
There is no character. Well, he's in every game, but other than that, like the journey. And this is only pure video game bullshit that could happen. I guess it could also happen in anime as well. But like the bullshit he goes through, where like starts out meeting like, Big Boss when he's like younger, and then kind of fighting Solid Snake later, and then having his arm replaced by Liquid Snake's arm, and then having that arm take over his mind. And like this like reverse hip. It's just some crazy stuff. Metal Gear Solid 4 ends with old him and old Snake having a fist fight on top of a robot. It's very, very cool.
It's so epic.
He's a amazing character. He almost made it. So those are my honorable mentions. Cody?
So I had Obsidian Warmblood from Final Fantasy 14.
Okay.
Just like where that character starts and where he ends his journey. Not really, it doesn't end his journey, but like just where he begins and where he ends, like Endwalker, like he's a totally different character, and he goes from being this guy who hates dragons to he is best friends with a dragon, and it's amazing. Maybe one day I'll talk about it more. Waluigi, because he's just a great character.
Yeah.
And at this point, Reinhardt from Overwatch. He's one of those characters who has a tragic backstory, and it's what keeps him going forward. And it is a cinematic that I still can watch this day and tear up and almost cry over. So yeah,
good list. If I had to add a tank to my list, I'd put D.Va there. But D.Va's kind of a flat character. She's just a mecha pilot, and I love mecha anything. So
yeah.
like I said at the beginning, we had a ton of listener ones come in. So let's go through some of those really quick. I'll start. This is from Sam, Sam, I appreciate. Sam's the only one who uses the email address, which is SideQuests at misadventure.land. Sam says, Chloe Price from the Life is Strange series, specifically Before the Storm. She was just a fun character to play because she's so different from me. Her confidence and backtalk events were so much fun. Chloe's a very good one. Everyone from Butterfly Soup, but especially Arkasha. She's silly and a fun prankster, and I would have such a good time hanging out with her. And Mirage from Apex Legends. He's super confident, fun, and funny, but on the inside, he's really vulnerable and unsure of himself, and a total sweetheart. I just love him. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, if we're doing this list, I actually wanted to make a special shout out to Prolific. He's a new listener, and
Yes.
He also submitted some information regarding his favorite characters. I thought they were also pretty interesting. Alucard from Symphony of the Night.
Okay.
Love me some Alucard. Ivy from Soul Calibur. It's an interesting choice of fighting game character. Ivy's pretty top of the chain there. She's really cool. And John Marston from Red Dead Redemption. So we got a Red Dead character here as well. They also mentioned their player character in Skyrim. So I thought that was really cool to attribute like your whole experience through the eyes of that player character. Feels very personal.
Yeah.
So welcome to the SideQuests family, Prolific. It's been great to have you around.
Yeah, absolutely. Cody, you want to do the next one?
Yeah. So from Nori, for them, what makes a good character is someone you simply remember, someone who has an impact on you long after the game comes out. For their 3 favorite characters, they have Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn / Forbidden West, Commander Shepard from the Mass Effect series, and also a Kratos God of War fan. Love to see it. So yeah.
This is from Spirit Guide. It says, I say someone who feels real and is not completely black or white when it comes to how they got to where they are. Are they always good people? Absolutely not. I'm really going to harp on Borderlands, but look at Handsome Jack or Reese, the former with noble pursuits, but soon became lost trying to serve that justice, the latter idolizing Handsome Jack, but then soon finding the consequences of the mindset. I did really enjoy Wei Shen's character and have to second Commander Shepard. Yeah.
You're getting a lot of Commander Shepards, which is
a lot
exciting.
of Commander Shepards.
I love Commander Shepard. So Maverick submitted. He says that good characters one you could have a conversation about, and everyone looks at them differently. So, for example, they gave Joel Miller from The Last of Us. People have often debated if they did the right thing or the wrong thing, and the conversations are fun to have. So the 3 characters that popped into their head under that guise is, so Joel Miller is one of them. James Sutherland is a great character from Silent Hill 2. James Sutherland is wonderful. Silent Hill 2 is a great game.
Yes.
And we have another Lee Everett from Walking Dead. Lee Everett's a great character. I bawled my eyes out at the end of that game.
The end of that game is too much.
Oh, it's hard to watch.
Much. The end of that game. Yeah, that game is so fucking sad.
So
Hugh, yes, go ahead, Cody.
Yeah. Hugh had a conversation starter is more often than not the sign of a great character. Sadly, those conversations don't always come from a good place. You can see Abby from The Last of Us 2, but that means they're evocative and cause a reaction in people, and often that leads to conversations where people can learn something and grow. I'll say that a character that people can connect with, like if there's a human aspect to them that's reflected in you, then you become more invested in them, and that feeling is heightened. Is there a character you control, as then it's you physically deciding where their journey goes? I think that's a great way to sum up what makes a good character.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to take the next one, Sky? From
Sure.
Spartan?
Okay. So Spartan Wolf 047 actually gave us a really long, well thought out essay. So if you ever want to see that full breakdown, we invite you to join our Discord.
Yes.
That's where we take these suggestions and where we read them off. And it's always a lot of fun to have those discussions in the Discord. Is a great place to do that. So I will just sum it up really quick. Master Chief John 117, iconic. They provided a quote. We all fail. We all make mistakes. It's what makes us human. So we were talking about how quotes can really stick with you. And that's a good one. Man of little words, but he always makes them count. So Geralt of Rivia, they said that, it's a good anti-hero, honorable, loyal, despite that, great character in general. Just Witcher is a great game series. And this one I can totally relate to because, I didn't think of it before, but definitely an honorable mention on my part. Ezio Auditore da Firenze. We love Assassin's Creed 2 in this house. My dad actually dressed up as Ezio for Halloween once. So, anyways, great character, huge story arc. You literally see Assassin's Creed 2. He's born at the beginning, and you go all the way throughout his life, and he's dead at the end. Like, you get to see the whole shebang. So he's a wonderful character. It's a great choice.
Is he the only character that's the main character of multiple games? He is, right? Of Assassin's Creed games?
So he's one of the most important assassins.
Yeah. But
sure,
after that,
series.
every game is a different person. I think, I'm pretty sure. Justin wrote in, said Liara from Mass Effect, Cassandra from AC Odyssey, and Bayek from AC Origins. Shout out to Aloy, Arthur Morgan, and Geralt.
Andy, over at Historic Me, says a great character is one that leaves an impression that even years later still takes you back to a specific time and place. He thinks about Dom from Gears of War. His story made me cry. That almost made my list. I love Dom so much from Gears of War. This was an interesting
made me laugh.
Pac-Man, relentless, knows what he wants and never stops going for it. The most insightful take on Pac-Man I've ever heard in my life.
I'll never play Pac-Man the same ever again.
And then follows it up with Pyramid Head, just an absolute piece of shit character that has always bothered me even to this day.
Yep.
I love Andy so much for his takes.
Oh, I love that.
I did not see Dom from Gears of War coming from Andy. I did not see that coming. So, that's great. So thank you to everybody who wrote in for those. Just a lot of really good, really layered answers. Like, we didn't read out a lot of the descriptions of that people wrote on some of these, but like Sky said, join the Discord. The link's in the description below. Whatever service you're watching this on, it'll be in the notes that below. So, or on the show notes on your podcasting app. So join the community. We had some couple ones from last week about their Mount Rushmore. I just want to read through really quick. Mavericks wrote in. I know I'm late on the gaming Mount Rushmore, but it said Washington, Kirby Superstar. Their Jefferson was Diablo 2. Their Lincoln was Journey, and their Roosevelt was Gears of War. So 2 Gears of War references in 2 answers. And then we actually every week after the show, I'm able to put like the question of the week or the topic of the week on like Spotify. And someone Devo on Spotify answered with Washington, it was a Cobra Triangle, Jefferson, Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Tooie, Diddy Kong Racing, and Lincoln, World of Tanks, and Roosevelt, Evolve. So
great list.
Wow.
Devo and Justin, kindred spirits for Evolve. So that's it for those responses questions. We got some other questions, like general questions. We're kind of I'm saving those up. So if we ever do like a listener questions episode, we'll have a few of them to go through. But yeah, thank you everybody who wrote in for that. So that's it for our topic next week. As we're nearing the end of August and heading into the last few months of the year, we're going to, here at SideQuests, we're going to preview the rest of the year and talk about the games that we're most excited for the rest of the year. So let us know what game you're most excited for the rest of the year. You can leave that or your thoughts on this topic that we just talked about, our favorite characters, down in the comments below, or write into sidequests@misadventure.land, or join our Discord and leave feedback in the SideQuests channel, or find us on socials at @side_quests_pod. Now we get to the fun stuff. We're going to roll for topic.
Hell yeah.
So every week, we let a D20 decide what from our list of topics we're going to discuss. These are all short topics that don't really take research. So we're going to answer them off the cuff. Cody is going to be the roller today. Cody, give us a roll.
All right, here we go.
Big money.
18.
What we got?
Big money.
Name one thing that will always make you happy.
Aw, that's so wholesome.
That's a very wholesome question.
That's very wholesome. I gotta think. I know we said we weren't gonna think about that, but I gotta think about that.
Well, to keep on our theme for this week of dads, it'll definitely be my son.
Stop, I'm gonna cry right now.
That's so. Oh my god, that's so sweet.
He's 4, going to be 5 in a couple of weeks, which I can't believe. But like, you know, it's still, all the stuff they tell you good and bad is absolutely true. Sometimes it's a absolute pain in the fucking ass. But when, you know, when I get done with work and I walk out of my office and he's sitting there on the couch and he looks up and smiles at me, or when he sees that I'm awake in the morning and comes running over and sits next to me, or when he, you know, the last 2 nights, because I was sick for a week and we really couldn't like cuddle or anything like that. The last 2 nights he fell asleep with me on the couch, which he never does. Like he came up and laid on my arm and just fell asleep with me. Like, you know, it's just those moments, the far eclipse all of the stuff that is difficult. And it's like, I can't wait to see how he keeps growing. So it's really amazing.
What
so
a cutie patootie.
My son is definitely that for me.
Well, there's no topping that. But yeah. Cody, do you want to go next?
There's no topping that, so I don't want to go next. Cody, will you please go next and be a buffer?
Go.
I think something that's always gonna make me happy is, this is like cliche, but like making other people happy, like making people laugh, making people smile. Like that's something I like pride myself on. That like if I can make someone smile, like it might make their day. And so like I think that's just something kind of like cliche to say, but I think that's it for me.
Oh, that's great.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
I was going to say, for what it's worth, I love these discussions because you always make me smile. So for talking about being corny and stuff, you know. Okay, so I think something that always makes me happy, and this is going to sound totally ridiculous, but going to a convention. So they are my favorite thing to do in the world. I literally live and breathe for these things. I go to like 4 or 5 a year. It's always the same over and over, but it always imbues me with this like energy that lasts for weeks and weeks and weeks after the fact. And then I have the crash and I get depressed and then I'm like, oh, when's the next one? But yeah, no, I'm a huge convention goer, video games, anime, comic books, you name it, I'm there. I just recently did my first cosplay, which was Tifa from Final Fantasy VII, remake in particular, because they're different outfits, they're totally different takes on the outfit. That I'm really looking forward to like busting out. I'm doing it next year. I got to get it a little fixed up. I've got a convention coming up in a week. I might be going to PAX East in Boston next year. So like there's a whole thing to that just like, I live for it. It keeps me going. So
no, that's great.
The least wholesome answer.
It's still a very wholesome answer. It's still a very wholesome answer.
When your hobby means that much to you, right?
Yeah. You could have been like, I don't know, scotch. That's unwholesome. You know? So
I thought about being like food makes me happy.
A fresh cup of coffee in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, it does always make me happy.
Oh, the cup of joe.
Yeah. That when that smell hits you, that's the thing that always makes me happy. This was much more wholesome than last week's discussion. Which,
oh my God, we had a fight last week.
Which was mustard versus ketchup. Just want to say we had a couple on YouTube. We had a couple of comments about it. Spartan Wolf said, just going to say that I use ketchup and mustard together on most things that would require a condiment. However, as an individual condiment, I guess I would give the slight edge to mustard. Marvin on YouTube said mustard all day, every day. So YouTube comments really coming up clutch for your boy here. And for Sky. Sky, you also said mustard, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I put an Instagram survey out as well, and ketchup won. And I was like, I don't know you people.
Good people. Good people over there on Instagram.
So on our Twitter, I put up a poll.
This is rigged. I think this is rigged because ketchup was winning for like ever.
Bobby just made a bunch of fake accounts.
Yeah, I just made a bunch of accounts and answered.
Mustard lover 9292.
No, actually, I opposite because I accidentally voted for ketchup.
Oh shit! You traitor.
Yeah, but mustard won 53% to 47% on our poll. So
I'm gonna recount. Rigged.
Rigged. Demand a recount.
Stop the vote.
Stop the vote.
Oh my God.
I texted my buddy after we finished recording to be like, "Oh, I told the peasant condiment story on the show tonight."
That was such a funny story. I was dying. Oh my God. But let us know what you guys think about that topic, and we want to know what makes you guys happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I want to know so bad. I need that wholesome perk of energy in my life. So any
Yeah.
of those comments, let's do it.
Give us
I
that
think everyone else
serotonin
would do
hit.
it too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give
we need
us
the serotonin. Let's
Give
go.
us those serotonin hits. So that's what makes you happy. You can answer in the comments below. If you're watching on YouTube, or leave it on our socials, or come to our Discord. All right, so moving on to our predictions/game section. Little results first here. We tried to guess the open critic score for Cult of the Lamb. I guessed 82. Cody guessed 88, and Sky guessed 85, which was exactly the right guess. It is certainly sitting at an 85 on OpenCritic at the moment. So she wins.
Did I ever tell you guys that I'm psychic? Maybe I should have
Apparently.
brought that up, because perfect score, first try. Let's go.
The first set of reviews came out and it was at 83. And I was like,
Oh,
let's go.
I nearly sent a picture to be like, looks like I'm gonna win. And then I looked at who reviewed it, and like GameSpot wasn't on there, IGN wasn't on there, Game Informer wasn't on there, and I was like, damn it. I was like, I cannot send this yet.
It was at 86, and I was like, oh, like maybe there's a chance they can go up 2 points.
Yeah.
And then it went down and went, oh no.
Yeah.
They were listening to the podcast. They were like, Sky has to win.
Yeah.
We have to rig the score.
So Sky's up 1-0 right now. She has 1 point on our thing. So right now she is in first place. So for our next little contest here, we won't know the answer to this until the end of the month. So this will be a delayed scoreboard. But I want us to try to guess between really the two big releases of September are The Last of Us Part 1, which is the full remake, and then Splatoon 3 is coming out as well. I'm just double checking because I looked this up in two places. I just want to make sure that I'm right about this Last of Us thing, because it was on the Game Informer list, which is usually very, very accurate. Yeah, September 2nd, 2022 is when it comes out. So we're going to guess which game is going to sell the most copies in its first month of release, not over the lifetime, just in its first month of release. We don't have to guess how many copies, just which one we think is going to win. Because those might go like, two of us might win, one of us might lose, whatever. This will all work itself out as we go. Just as a little background here, so we're all working from the same information. As far as like sales previously of this stuff, the original Last of Us, across its original release and the remastered release, which is over PS3 and PS4, it has sold 20 million copies over its lifetime, which is from 2013 till today. Not till today, but till the last time they tracked the sales of The Last of Us. That is how many units it has sold. And I believe too, The Last of Us Part 2 just crossed 10 million, I believe.
Dedicated fan base.
The Last of Us 2 is really, and it's going to fast line. Oh no. Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, 10 million copies. It has sold 10 million copies so far. So it's since June 2020. And Splatoon 2, which released on the Switch very early in the Switch's lifespan, has sold 13.3 million copies in its lifespan, which is about twice as much as Splatoon 1, which was released on the Wii U, which is a very small install base. So, but really let's say 13 million for Splatoon 2, and probably looking into it, you're looking at like, let's say the 10 million of Last of Us Part 2 and the 20 million of Last of Us Part 1 over many years. So at least we have the information about what those sold, so we can kind of go into this. So Cody, what do you think is going to sell more copies in its first month?
I think if you think it's The Last of Us Part 1, you are insane.
I think so too.
100%. I think the unfortunate, the way Last of Us 2 kind of came out and all that kerfuffle around it, I think that's really soured a lot of people on the series. I think the $70 price tag ruffled a lot of feathers for Last of Us Part 1 remake. I don't know. I think Splatoon 3, Switch games do really well. I just think there's more traction on that than Last of Us Part 1 remake. So yeah, 100% Splatoon 3.
Sky, you're in the same bank.
Yeah, I think Splatoon 3 for the same reason. I find multiplayer games sell fast and they sell really aggressively and then they taper off, whereas these like huge, AAA games tend to have a spread out lifespan. A lot of people aren't going to buy The Last of Us Part 1, whatever it is, remake. It's a remake, right? It's not a remaster.
It's a remake, yes.
It's a remake. So they've already experienced it. It's probably full price, like Cody mentioned.
It's $70.
It's limited to a platform that still doesn't have full circulation. Like I'm pretty sure it's on PS5 only.
Yes.
So that also hinders its release numbers. I just think by virtue of what Splatoon 3 is, if we're talking 1 month worth of sales, I think it's going to sell more.
Yeah. I agree with both of you.
All right, let's see if we all get wrong. All wrong, could you imagine?
There's literally no way we're going to be wrong. There's just no way. Splatoon, like Cody said, the Switch is like a sales machine. Its software does so well. Like you look at like the NPD list quarter after quarter, and it's like filled with Nintendo games that are 5 years old, like selling, through the roof. Like I said, the original Splatoon sold 13.3 million copies, and it came out super early in the first year of the Switch. It came out when and it's not one of those games that it's not one of the first 5 games you buy when you buy a Switch either. So it's managed to accrue 13 million sales now with the way things go with their games. Like it's going to end up selling 15 million copies, and probably a ton in its first month. People are hungry for games. They're going to want to buy something. People want to buy stuff for their Switch. Like it's going to sell really, really well is my guess. All right.
Also want to say,
go ahead.
I saw that the Splatoon 3 is going to be one of the first games to utilize a new kind of network feature from Nintendo to make multiplayer online better. So that also might help.
I'll believe it when I see it, Cody.
Yeah, right. I know, right? That also might help a lot,
totally
though.
Damaged netcode and it's just trash.
Yeah. I mean, Splatoon is always the actual online
it's not bad.
Performance has always been good. It's just they have they have weirdly weird ways of with 2 you had to play for so long before you could even ask a friend to join you in a party, and then it was one of those things where you have to be okay, I'm gonna send you an invite. Okay, accept the invite, and it would have to you have to link up at the same time to make it happen. It wouldn't let you keep a party going. You'd have to reconnect every single time you would finish a match. So we'll see. But Splatoon's a fun game, so
totally
we'll see what happens. Anyway, all right. So really quickly, let us know what do you guys think in the comments about what do you think is going to sell the best for this month. Quickly, the game that Sky has taken her lead on for our predictions came out, and both of us have been playing it. I have played. I beat the first boss, the first priest or whatever of the first area. I finished that first area, and I'm at the boss of the second area. So I've progressed pretty far. I probably put 7 hours into it or something like that. It's not a very long game. It's like a 16-hour game. But we don't know what Cult of the Lamb is. It's basically 1/2 Hades and 1/2 Stardew Valley is essentially kind of.
Oh my God, that's a good way to put it.
What it is. You are this lamb who gets sacrificed, and then this elder god brings you back to life and says, start a cult in my name, and then take out these people, these priests who have been imprisoning me or whatever. So you come in and you basically you go through the roguelike sections where you go into the woods and you sort of fight these enemies. You can find these survivors, and you can indoctrinate them into your cult, and you kind of assign them a job, and they have a happiness meter. They can be hungry. Basically, it's it's basically faith, hunger, and waste are the 3 things you have to manage. So like before you have like you can eventually build an outhouse, but before you build an outhouse, these motherfuckers just poop all over your little like area. They poop and throw up everywhere, and you have to clean it up, or they get upset with you that there's poop and throw up everywhere. And you basically part of the game, you will be sort of like you're growing crops, you're like mining for resources, you are also giving sermons to increase the faith in you. You do rituals, like you can sacrifice cult members to like to the gods to like either raise or lower faith. You can, and a bunch of other things as well. There's a bunch of upgrade trees that you have to upgrade, but and all that stuff, all the like resources you need to do the management. You're either growing where you are, or you have to venture out into these roguelite levels in order to like gather them, basically. And they're broken down into basically each one you have to defeat. You have to do 4 runs, and then you get to a boss of the area, essentially. But every time you finish, like they're short runs. It's like it looks like it's like kind of like
6 or 7 minutes each.
Yeah, they're very short. It's
Yeah.
sort of just like, and it's the same sort of like look as like the map is sort of looks like Slay the Spire or Inscription, where it's like, okay, like you have like 3 paths you can go down, and you can kind of see what is on each path. Like, oh, there's like a resource node here. Oh, there's like a combat level here. Oh, there's like a survivor here, and you can choose which path you go on. And then the top is like the boss. You beat the boss, and then you kind of get to a middle area where it's like, okay, go back to your cult, do all your stuff, and then come back in. And you basically do that 3 times, and then it unlocks like your last run, which takes you to the boss. But it's not like if you die, it resets your progress on how many runs you have to do. Basically, it's just filling out like a thing where it's like, oh, you've done 2. Oh, you died in your 3rd one. Okay, you got to go back and do your 3rd one again. Not you have to do your 1st and your 2nd one again. So like it's very linear. I would say like it's not like Hades or a lot of other roguelikes in the way where all of your progress and all of your like forward momentum is wrapped up in, can I do these really hard battles over a long period of time to eventually get to the end of a run and actually beat the game, right? It's broken up very much, so you only have to do it in little segments across the board. I really like it so far. I think that I like the management part of it more than I like the going out into the woods and fighting monsters part of it. Just because I think like that the management part has more depth and is more thought out than like the combat is very simple. It's just you have like a sword or an axe or whatever, and you get those randomly when you start a level, and like the one button attacks, one button dodges, and then another button does like a special, like it does like a magic move that you have, or a curse. Like I think they call it a curse. And it can be a bunch of other thing, and that's dictated by this like 1 meter that you refill up by killing enemies. That's it. Like there's no big combos. There's no there's not a lot going on as far as the combat goes. But I like it so far. I think it looks good. I really like the music a lot in it.
Oh, it's great. It's very like like moody.
Yeah.
And a little like retro as well.
Yeah. What do you think of it,
to your
Sky?
point, it's you're right. The combat's pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing special about it. It's not very varied. Your run's basically over if you get a dagger. I always if I get a dagger, I just like stand in the middle of the first room and let myself get like expired. But here's what this game did to me. So I actually just bought it yesterday, and I put like 6 to 7 hours into it in a single sitting. I became just like, I went bum mode, and I just like I was in my PJs, and I kept refilling my coffee mug, and I just sat there and I banged it out. So I'm at the exact same spot that you are, Bobby. I'm at the end of the 2nd biome. But here's what happened. So this like game unlocked something in me that I didn't think I was capable of, because when I first started it, I was like, I'm going to be the most benevolent cult leader. These barn animal, they're so cute, little barn animals. They're just little smiles, they got big beady eyes. They walk around, they're like, la, 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 just chilling. They're just like, making the best out of a shitty circumstance, because it's like, if you're not in a cult, you're going to die. If you're in a cult, you're probably going to die anyway. But like the cult at least gives you your little flower crown and a little bit of camaraderie before you get your shit pushed in by a demon, but like, I became such an asshole. I sacrificed those little dudes.
Yeah.
Because they piss me off. Every time I go over there, they're like, clean up my poop. You've been gone a long time and I'm hungry. Someone died over there of old age because they're animals and they have a short ass lifespan.
Yeah, because they're 42 years old. I married. You can marry one of the people. I marry this person, and then all of a sudden I come back and she's like walking around like old. She's like, I only have a few days left.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how old are you? And she's like, 43. And I was like, okay.
In animal years. Yeah. Like, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
I recruited you 5 days ago.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've been a dick. I've been like, so all the ones I picked were just kind of like convenient. So it was like my doctrine was like grassy gruel is now and has no negative side effects. So when I go in there, I just grassy gruel. I just make a ton of it. I leave it on the floor. I have like 5 outhouses. They all poop over there in the corner. There's all the resource management at the bottom. But like every time I have to, this ritual comes off cooldown, I butcher one like a jerk, and I don't feel bad about it. And I really thought I was gonna feel bad about it. Don't care anymore. I also unlocked the doctrine where like if you die on a run, you can sacrifice one of your followers to keep going at the spot you died in.
Oh yes.
So if you're in like a boss fight and like, you get like nicked by a little fucking bullet from across the screen, which happens a lot because I find, at least on the Switch, I'm getting a little bit of a frame rate issue. When there's a lot going around on the screen, it kind of freezes, and I try and like dodge roll through something, and then I get the freeze tear, like the tears on the screen, and then I dodge right into it instead, and I die. So I've been taking advantage of that. I also quickly unlocked all 4 biomes. So as soon as I realized I needed 12 followers to get to the end of the game, and that I didn't want to take care of these like whiny little animals anymore, I got 12 as fast as I could, and then I unlocked all the biomes. But they're hard. So like the third and the fourth biome are definitely not things you should be doing until you, get more followers and you actually take part in the resource management, which isn't bad. I don't hate the resource management or anything like that. I don't want to take care of these little animals. They don't care about, like, one of them approached me the other day, like, and was like, feed the other member of this cult a bowl of poop.
Yep.
Because it's funny.
It's funny.
I couldn't do it.
Really?
I was like,
I did it immediately.
Oh my God. I was like, how the hell do you do this? I guess I didn't have enough poop to make the poop while you 3 poops. And I couldn't do it. And I was like, I walked away. I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to feed the poop. I don't want to wait for these things to defecate all over the place just so I could get this quest. I didn't think, it was the first quest I failed. I didn't think it was going to have such a dire consequences. So I went on a run. I let that expire. I came back. They were all so mad at me. Their faith dropped by like 60 points and I was in the red. And I was like, all right, I guess I got to go kill one of these dudes in the morning. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
It was a mess. But yeah. I'm apparently not a nurturer. I would be a bad cult leader, I guess.
No, I think you'd be a great cult leader, Sky. I think you're doing exactly what you need to do.
Yeah,
like for me,
you're doing good.
Like picking the doctrines, like, because there's like what Sky's talking about is like, as you do favors and stuff and you do quests for your cult members, you get these little pieces, like these little medallion pieces. And when you get 3 of them, you kind of unlock the ability to unlock this doctrine, which, like Sky's saying, it unlocks like a passive trait or a ritual or something. It kind of sets sort of like the tone of like what things you do and don't do that make your cult better or worse. And I'm definitely just going like, what's good for me? Like in this, what do I want to like? What are the parts of the game that like I'm not so great at or like I get annoying to me? Which I'm gonna pick the one that makes that part easier for me. So one of them was like, I picked the opposite of the grassy growing, which was that now they don't. So when a cult member dies or you sacrifice them, you can use their bones and their meat, their meat to make meals that the other people can eat. But one of the downsides of it is that like it gives them 2 perks, but it has a 75% chance of killing them instantly when they eat it. But there's a doctrine you can unlock that says like, there's no negative effect if they eat a whole thing. So like, I'm just like, sacrifice a person, make some meals, give it to the people. Like that's what I'm doing. Bring some, but then what you can do. So what you can do is just as a thought experiment, you could feed somebody that bowl of poop, right? Mm-hmm. And then you could kill that person. Sacrifice them, resurrect them from the dead, because you can also resurrect dead cult members, then feed them a meal made of their own meat, basically.
This is like a pseudo like
so
South Park
seem like a
episode. This is a
hypothetical,
South Park
Bobby.
episode.
I had one quest that was like, can you just like throw this one dude in jail for a little while? He's being real annoying. And I'm like, okay. So I just tossed him in jail. And sometimes these guys come up to you and they got their beady, angry eyes on them when they're mad at you or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna leave. You better. If you don't get your shape of your shit real quick, I'm leaving. Essentially, is what they say. So either when that happens, I either throw them in jail, and then you can re-educate them. So every day you can go over to them and like give them a sermon.
Like threaten them, yeah.
And then like their little meter of anger goes down or whatever, or dissent goes down. Or I just go, if my sacrifice ritual is off cooldown, let's have a meeting, everybody. We're having a sacrifice today, and this person is dying.
Yeah. Okay, so we're both bad people.
Oh yeah. You're a cult leader. I mean, but I do give them a day off. I have the doctrine that gives them a day off every week, so they don't have to work. Also, but when they have their day off, they also don't poop in the fucking outhouse. They just poop on the ground.
They go back to being like actual animals.
It's their day off. You know, they just gotta chill. God. It's fun. I think that like, I think that some of the ramp ups that happen, I think could be a little bit smoother. Like I think that there are times where the game I think is kind of wants me to build certain things or do certain things, and I'm like, I don't have the resources to like do this thing you want me to do right now, but I feel like I should, and I don't know why. You know, I don't have them. So those parts I think could be a little bit better, but. Like I said, I think the management part, like all the stuff we talked about, it's deep, it's fun, you can make your own stories out of it. The combat is very much like, okay, I'm going to go into this room with some trees and a couple rocks in it, and there's going to be some frog monsters jumping around, and I'm going to hit them a couple of times, then a chest with a couple of coins is going to come, then I'm going to go to the next room, and like, you know, it's like, the one thing that's interesting about it is that you get these cards along the way. There's like rooms with this guy who has cards, and you open them up, and they gives you like three options, like pick a card, and it'll be like, you know, 1.25% damage modifier, or one of them is like chance to poison on, you know, when you strike somebody, or like here's like, you know, get 2 temporary hearts like to your health. So like that part adds a little bit of like a wrinkle to it or whatever, I think, but just the moment combat is not that like engaging. And I do agree with this guy, like I'm playing on the Xbox and the performance is fine, but your character is little. Right?
Little guy.
And there's
in the area.
Yeah, and there's lots of other little guys on the screen. I just wish there was some sort of like, I don't know, like an outline around the character or something that just made it like pop a little bit more. Cause sometimes I just like, you roll down to the bottom part of the screen and they do like that kind of thing. A lot of games like this do, which is like, they're putting stuff up in the foreground to make it look like it has more depth than it actually does. And then sometimes your character's just behind that thing and you're behind that thing with an enemy that you can't see because they're also not outlined when they're behind things. So it's like I just got hit and I have no idea why, you know. And it's like that's the one thing mechanically that I really wish was a little bit better.
I should note that I'm getting the screen tearing and stuff like that on the Switch.
Yeah.
So that would be the reason. The Switch as great of a machine as it is, and it's honestly it's my personal preference these days because it's beautiful outside and I don't want to sit inside. I want to go outside. I want to. You know, portable gaming is like my summer thing.
You want to be the person from the Switch commercials who's like at the rooftop party playing their Switch when everyone is saying
it's funny because like you have to either get like the anti-glare screen or you have to sit in the shade. So it doesn't even matter because like you can't play it with the screen the way it is. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. But on the Switch, it's okay. But there are performance issues when there's just a lot of bullshit happening. And with these like final bosses, there's a lot of bullshit happening. They're not particularly difficult fights, but it's easy to die because you just get lost in the chaos and the screen tearing just doesn't help. So
yeah, I've heard the Switch version has some problems.
A little, but it's serviceable. Given that the Switch is just that's the Switch. That's the way it is. That's the sacrifice you make for portable gaming.
Yeah,
performance drops and stuff.
The Xbox has been totally good. No frame rate stuff. There's like some weird stuff when the days change. Sometimes it like will freeze for like but like nothing that like affects gameplay, you know, at all. So yeah, it's a cool game. Definitely a cool game. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a really good time with it. I think it's $25, $30.
I think it's $30.
It's
It's under
$30.
$30 for sure. Like it's content for that price. There's content to spare.
Yeah, there's plenty of
it's worth
spare,
every penny.
yeah.
For sure.
It's like a 16 to 20 hour game. It's fun. Yeah.
Sky, do you have the Switch Pro or the base Switch?
So I actually have a launch edition Switch. So it's like the oldest possible Switch you can have. My sister just recently got the Switch because she wanted to hang out with me outside. So she bought the OLED one, and it's really nice. Like I am tempted as hell to get that upgrade. Just the screen itself. It's crazy how much space you lose on the screen on the original Switch. It just you don't think it's a lot, but then you look at the OLED and you're like, that is significant.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's great though.
Yeah. Are you guys
Deck.
naming your followers after people?
No,
like
I haven't been
the other
changing
day-
names. I haven't been changing their
Okay.
names.
I started doing that, and then I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Meg's in a different Discord admin is like, sorry, Cody just died the other day. And I was like, I woke up because Meg's is in Australia, so she's like up before all of us.
Yeah.
I woke up and I was like, what?
what does this mean?
Okay.
Are you a prophet?
It's like, what's going on?
Yeah. Meg's just
do you
staring at
guys,
you from outside your window.
Yeah, right. I'm like, oh.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I
Do you
love
guys
her.
think this would be a game that would be like on your game of the year lists?
Right now, I think so. I mean, it's been a weird year, right? It's been a very thin year. Honestly, I'm just looking for things to fill out everything, the things below Elden Ring at this point, and for the most part, you know. But yeah, it's one of the games I've enjoyed the most this year, for sure.
It's easy to pick up. It's easy to play. But I wouldn't consider it a game of the year, just given that there's so much more coming out still. Like you got Bayonetta 3, you got God of War, Final Fantasy Crisis Core Remaster. Like these are all things that I'm going to play, and these are all things I'm probably going to like more. So
Well, let's be fair, Sky. Crisis Core Remaster is in the winter. They haven't said if it's coming out this year or not. I think that's coming out in 2023.
don't say this to me.
Yes, Sky. It's absolutely a February 2023 game.
No, it's a December right before Christmas game.
There's no way Square Enix would have said.
Sky wakes up on Christmas morning, opens the box. It's there for her game, Bobby.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, it's not coming out this
Don't
year.
ruin my holidays. There's only 4 months to go.
In fact, if it even comes out and technically what winter is, I'll be very surprised. If that game isn't coming out in July of 2023, I'll be extremely surprised.
You ruined my whole night with this.
Sorry, it's Square Enix's fault.
Fair. They ruined my whole night.
Square Enix's fault. Cody, Destiny 2.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick. So time of recording this, tomorrow is the Destiny showcase. They're going to be showing off Lightfall, which is the new expansion coming out next year, and also the new season. And I don't know, like I get into these like modes where like I play Destiny for a bit, I take a break, and I get hyped again, and I can start playing again. And so the past like few days, I've just been really like grinding out some Destiny 2. The current season is Season of the Haunted. I posted on Twitter, I think some of the best storytelling that they've done in the game, probably since the Forsaken expansion. This season is all about dealing with regret, strife, hardships. Like it takes 3 core characters and puts them up against their nightmares, both in the literal term and in the game term. So you follow Crow, Zavala, and Keitel, who are just 3 characters who have been very prominent in the game recently. The Leviathan ship, which is a ship that used to have a bunch of raids on it, has returned. It is like trying to. I'm
just
really
loving
confused.
Cody like deciding to explain because in order to describe what Cody likes about this, Cody's gonna have to give you like a lore lesson on like all of these Destiny words that are gonna mean nothing to anybody except for people who play Destiny.
My eyes are vacant.
Yeah. Instead of explaining the story to us, Cody, because I don't think that's gonna be very like helpful, you know, or whatever. What is it about the story? Not necessarily the ins and outs of the story, but what is it about this story that you think puts it above some of the other stuff? Because I mean, in general, it's just a level set. In general, the people who like Destiny are pretty happy, right? No one's ever happy, but
no one's ever happy.
No one's ever happy. Half the fan base loves it. Half the fan base thinks it's the worst thing that ever happened. I get it. But like in general, the kind of momentum of Destiny has been pretty good over the last couple of years, right? Yeah.
I think they've definitely, while the seasonal model has definitely like gotten stagnant because it's the same thing over and over. Their story writing has like kicked it up a notch. Like it's like some of the best story stuff they've been producing in forever. And as far as like gunplay and like abilities and all that, it all feels great as always.
Right,
Bungie
yeah.
really knows how to make a great shooter. I think just this season, I think really like they do such a great job in delving into what a character is going through. So like the first 2 weeks of the season, we look at Crow and how he is dealing with his former self. So just real quick, Crow used to be a guy named Uldren Sov. Uldren Sov was a bad guy. He killed one of the most prominent characters in Destiny, Cade, and then he got resurrected. And when you get resurrected, you have no memory. And so Crow was like just living his life, like not knowing who he was in the past life. And then the big bad from the most recent expansion told him who he was, and his entire world came crashing down because he went from being just this baby little guardian to I used to be a murderer. I used to I
Oh,
killed
dang.
somebody.
That's
And
hard to deal with.
yeah,
Wow.
and so they tackle that. They tackle how like he's angry that like he's realizing he is the same person, like he does the same things in different aspects. Like they talk about how Aldrin used to like tell rumors just to start shit. And when Crow showed up in the city, like he told lies about how like where he came from. Just and he's like, I did the same thing. Like I started rumors about myself. And I think that's like something that like right now where I'm at in life, it was something that I really needed to hear because it was talking about how you can't let the sins of your past affect your future. You got to learn to accept them and grow with them and make a better future for those you hurt, but also just those that you want to do better by. And I think that was like really good. And then after that, it was Zavala, and this was really like the first time they really dived into Zavala's character. And you find out like he had a son and a wife before he became this like badass commander guy, and they died, and he's never forgiven himself because they
Sad
died.
dad. Sad
Sad
dad.
dad. Sad dad.
Theme of the
He's never
podcast.
forgiven himself, and so his nightmare is his ex-wife, and she's like in the first week like taunting him like you let our son die and you didn't try to save us and like all this. And in the second week of it, he's like, I failed you guys. I recognize that, but I'm going to keep doing better, and I'm going to honor your memory throughout it all. And like, I don't know, this sad dad stuff hits you hard in the chest.
Oh, it
Can I just
does.
say it's really funny that she's dead, right? The wife?
Yes, yes.
It's hilarious you call her his ex-wife because it's just like
Oh.
it's just like a bad comedian, like my ex-wife is here just telling me everything's my fault.
Oh, yeah. And so
I would honestly, I'd play the expansion if that were the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
100%.
it's like Rodney Dangerfield.
What is the guy who plays Lance Reddick just being like, hey, sorry, man.
Yeah,
It's like,
sorry. Hey, take my wife, please.
Yeah. And then I think like the third character to focus on is Keitel, who is this empress of a
I don't even know who that
Cabal.
is. I don't even know who that is.
She's been recent. She's been in the most recent stuff.
Okay.
She's the leader of the race in the game called the Cabal.
Yes.
Is
Okay.
she's trying to lead the Cabal differently than from her dad. Not only her dad, but also Gaul, who, if you played the original Destiny 2 story, Gaul was leading the Cabal and like he was winning until the Traveler woke up. And she's trying to lead the Cabal in a way that they can survive. Like their homeworld got destroyed. And her nightmare is Gaul and her father both being like, you're leading them wrong. You're making us weak. Like, why are you teaming up with the Guardians and the humans and the other races that we've been teaming up with lately? And it's really about her being like, no, like, I didn't forget like what we went through and like what our race has been through. I have taken that and I'm making the best decisions for where we are now. We lost everything. And I'm leading these people to a brighter future. And I'm gonna do it on my own. And like it's a really beautiful story. And yeah, it's just and there's like so many things like I can't cover here, but like they really dive into like just like hardships that like characters go through and like what you have to deal with to beat those nightmares. And it's like I was telling Alejandro, my friend, about this. Like we're big Destiny heads. Like we play the game constantly, and I was like, when the first season first came out, like I was just going through some stuff in life where like I could not deal with that right now. I'm glad I stopped and like really played through it all recently because it's just stuff that I needed to hear, I think, especially like the Crow stuff and the Keitel stuff. Like it was just kind of making me realize that like things I've done, like they happen, but I can shape my future and right those wrongs and things like that. And so it's like a personal thing really, but like it's crazy because it's a shooter game where I'm a space wizard and
I was gonna bring that up. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know Destiny had a story. I thought Destiny was
Yeah.
just like something my friends did on Friday nights and
like-
what blew me off from sushi just to like shoot stuff. You know what I
For
mean? Like
for most normal people, Sky, that is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's fair.
I
If you
kid.
actually play the,
kid.
but yeah, I mean, Destiny has definitely gotten a lot better over the year. I mean, no, there's literally like a point where like you paid $40 and you got 2 hours of a story and they were like, that's good. And now it's like pay $10 and you get 3 months of content and like the
That's
story is
good.
top notch. Like it's so good.
Well, I'm you know what? Today I learned Destiny has a plot line. So
And yeah, I'm super excited for the showcase tomorrow. I'm excited to see what Lightfall is about. I think the Witch Queen was a really good expansion. And
So Lightfall is the next expansion, Cody. Like it's like the Witch Queen.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. When's that supposed to come out?
They've switched to like in the spring,
Right,
is usually
because
when
of
it drops.
what happened with Witch Queen, right? Because it got delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it
Okay.
should be in spring. And
Okay.
so this will be like the first time we see anything of it. So
Cool.
it'll be cool.
Cool.
There's a lot of leaks out there. I've been trying to avoid them.
Of course
Avoid
there
them.
Are. Of course there
I
are.
know.
Of course there
don't
are.
be like me. I chase leaks. I'm impatient as fuck. So
I clicked on one or two and I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? But mainly about the new season. I've been trying to avoid anything about Lightfall because I want to be surprised tomorrow. Because always Bungie is just top notch at their Vidocs and like their cinematics and all that. So
They've
really
been good at that
excited for
stuff
it.
since the Halo days.
since Halo, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I remember Cody. Cody was streaming some event that they like.
Oh, God.
Destiny did some sort of like, oh, we're gonna be like Fortnite, and we're gonna do like an in-universe event that's gonna like close off this chapter and go to the next chapter. And I'm Cody's streaming, so we're all kind of hanging out watching, and something like we're watching it and like everyone's just like, okay, the same thing's happening. Cody's looking around and all of a sudden Cody's like, you see that door? You see that door wasn't open before? You say, oh my god. And I'm like, we're all like, what is going on? Cody is very excited that this door is now open.
Something about Destiny.
I know, it's great.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing to see.
what happened with the door?
So I think that event was like there's the tower, which is like where you're always at,
Yeah, that's
and
a
then
social
there's the
space.
last city,
Okay.
and so they led us into the last city, and there's a door opened, and I was like, "What's going on?" Like, I was like, "Oh, they're letting us explore! Oh my god!" I was like freaking out.
Yeah.
And then the best part about that was so like this big thing happens. The Traveler is like what makes Guardians come to life. This guy is so confused. I'm gonna just like,
Eli
So,
5,
like,
my friend.
the Traveler is like exploding and like gonna save us from these like darkness ships that are showing up. And I apparently had not moved in 5 minutes.
yeah, I forgot
And so as the event is culminating, it goes, "Are you still there?" and kicks me. And I was so sad because I guess a cutscene plays and like it's cool. And I was like so angry.
And Cody was sitting there for a
"No."
long time. Like they were waiting for this event to start for a very long time. And it was just like sitting on this like edge of this like space station. That's not a space station, but it looks like a space station, staring up at like unchanging sky for like 20 minutes. And then just as it's about to happen, and me and Mark and Justin were in the chat, and it was such a Schadenfreude moment where we took such glee in Cody's Cody's despair about what happened. Getting
They
kicked
have not
out.
done one since. So
No.
I just had like the girlfriend experience where like you set your girlfriend down, you're like, this is why I love Destiny. And it's just vacant stare, like I'm doing this because I love you.
It's like that meme of that guy like yelling in that girl's ear at the bar or whatever.
Oh my god, that meme was
that
so
was the
funny.
new one of the girl.
The new one of the
Yeah,
girl, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the guy in this one. Where I'm just like, Like, what is happening?
You see, the Traveler is a ball.
Yeah.
Oh God.
All right, so that's gonna do it for this week. If you made it all the way down to the show, I hope that means you've been enjoying us. Please remember, to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and like the video on YouTube. Follow us on socials at SideQuests at @side_quests pod. And join our Discord. There's a link in the description below wherever you're watching or listening to this. Next week, we're going to be talking about the games we're most excited for the rest of the year. Sky, I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot put Crisis Core on that list because it doesn't have a release date for the year.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Appreciate your honesty.
Okay.
Oh God.
Until our next quest, though, thank you, Sky.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you to everybody who is watching or listening. Until next time, be good to one another. Later.